Dungeons and Dragons. Satan's Game.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special late night Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melinda, and I'm streaming tonight because why the hell not? Actually, there is a reason, and we'll get to that in a second. Before anybody asks, I have a bandage on my nose. I tripped on a dog toy today, fell into a wall, and my glasses gouged out a chunk of my nose. So we have a bandage on our nose. So today, this will probably be a shorter stream, believe it or not. But today, I was on Roll for Combat's live stream, their Wednesday live stream. And we discussed, is there anything new in D&D? And as we, can 5th edition D&D create anything new? And as we were discussing this topic or this idea of like, is something from Unearthed Arcana actually new, or is it experimental? Like, if it doesn't make it to a book, does it really count? And somehow the concept, and I said, we were talking about old things from D&D that they have dredged up. Now, it's possible that this may reach not someone who's not in our normal audience. And so it should be noted that while I own a fair number of 5th edition D&D books, and I've even dabbled with the game, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination an expert in D&D 5th edition. We played it very briefly back in 2014 when it came out. I actually did a couple of pretty extensive playtesting of it. I went to a couple of conventions, playtested it in 2012, 2013. But when the game came out, our group just didn't really feel it, and we just ended up playing a bunch of other games. Some Pathfinder 1, some Earth Dawn, some 13th Age, and just a variety of different games. So, in any case, I basically have a very passable, very, very barely passable knowledge of 5th edition. So, we were talking about how, in my opinion, 5th edition D&D has just sort of glommed onto things that have from the past and have brought them into the modern game, not really creating anything new. And as we were discussing this, I said, you know what? Actually, something that's been in D&D since the 1st edition, 2nd edition, 3rd edition, even in 4th edition, was Psionics. There was always a psionic class, whether it was a random sort of table of procedural wild, id insinuation and ego whips and all that other weird stuff from the attack modes from AD&D 1st edition or 2nd edition, to the Psionics Handbook from 3rd edition, up to the Player's Handbook 3 from 4th edition, where you had the psionic power source, where you had the Scion, you had the Battle Mind, the Ardent, and the Monk. It was actually a psionic striker. And so I thought it was strange. I was like, 5th edition D&D, to my knowledge, I didn't do anything with psionics. And then it was pointed out to me that they did apparently do something with psionics. And it was a class that was released in Unearthed Arcana called the Mystic class. Now, I have traditionally despised psionics. I really just don't like it. It's not my cup of tea. I don't think it has any real place in the game because it's just another form of magic, and it's never really been different enough from other versions of magic to really feel like it has a place. I suppose maybe 1st edition did with its weird ego whips and different insinuations and all these other different psionic attack modes, but that was really clunky and weird. And 3rd edition psionics was literally just, use PowerPoints instead of slots. Other than that, it was the same. And of course, 4th edition had the psionic power source, but 4th edition's classes kind of, the psionic power source, while different than some of the other classes in 4th edition, it still just didn't really feel to me like this belonged anywhere or should be special. I will say, with a caveat, that I do think that Psionics is really cool as a setting integration for something like Dark Sun, which was in 2nd edition AD&D and in 4th edition D&D, where there is no divine magic, there are no clerics, there functionally really aren't very many druids, and mages, sorcery, magery is problematic. It's outlawed, it's reviled, it's hated, and you have to cast it either as a defiler or a preserver. It's a whole thing. So having psionics as a separate thing in Dark Sun makes sense to me. But when you have a fully functioning magic system, I just don't see the point of psionics. And I also just don't, quite frankly, get it in a fantasy setting. Now, in a sci-fi sort of fantasy setting, or sci-fi setting, the Esper, the sort of psionic mind magic. I'm a fan of Babylon 5, right? I love Lita. She's sweet. That was pretty cool. Or Talia. the Psy-Core. Shout out to Walter Koenig. I don't remember his character's name. But that's in sci-fi. In fantasy, where you have the presence of magic, I just don't understand really what Psionics is doing. So, since I don't know anything about 5th edition D&D, and since I don't know anything about the Mystic class, I thought it would be fun if we would together watch me not know shit about D&D and see if I like this or not. Now, it's my understanding, and again, this is where the audience will have to help me out here. This apparently did not make it into a book. So either it had problems, or it was problematic, it was underwhelming, it was overwhelming, it was OP, it was underpowered. I don't know. Quite frankly, I don't really care. But that is where we're at. So again, I'm coming to this from the experience of someone who's really, really a noob. In fact, let me tell you something really, really funny, which is hold on a sec. Which is that when D&D 5th edition first came out, we were coming out of 4th edition, we were coming out of 3rd edition, and we viewed those as sort of like the character optimizers kind of playground. And when we first got to 5th edition, we were like, oh, this is a lot like old school D&D. It's going to be really, really tough to do anything with this system. And we were like, how do you ever do any damage? And years later, when the game became more popular, I remember seeing something and someone was talking about their paladin doing 350 damage or something around. And I was like, what? How did that even happen? I don't even know what was going on. So it was like my experience and my impression of 5e D&D is quite different than most people. So here we go. Also fun, as you all get to stay here with me tonight. This is like a 20-page document, I think, give or take. I have never read an Unearthed Arcana article. So this was sent to me by Beowulf from our Knights of Last Call Patreon. I've never looked at one of these before, ever. So the Mystic is, interestingly too, the Mystic was the name of a class from Starfinder, maybe? Anyways, the Mystic's an entirely new class. This is a playtest version. The version of the class arrives out of playtest feedback from 2 previous versions. So this is version 3 of this class. Interesting. Okay. Mystic. We got some fluff here. A human clad in simple robes walks along a forest path. Right. So already it's like, oh, so it's a mage. His staff now a deadly cudgel. It's like, okay. These heroes are all mystics, followers of a strange and mysterious form of power. Mystics shun the world to turn their eyes inward, mastering the full potential of their minds and exploring their psyches before turning to face the world. Mystics are incredibly rare, and most prefer to keep the nature of their abilities secret. Using their inner psychic strength, they can read minds, so wizards. They can fade into invisibility, so wizards. They can transform their bodies into living iron, so wizard. And seize control of the physical world and bend it to their will, so wizard. You see what I'm saying? Like if I told you those things, if I said, outside of anything else, if they can read minds and they can turn invisible, they can, make their body, extremely durable or tough, like stone skin or iron skin, if they can use telekinesis, you would say, oh yeah, it's a wizard. So what is this class doing that isn't done? To me, it's just a flavor fail. But anyways, who cares? What difference does that make? That's so stupid, it doesn't even matter. But it's a mystic, not a wizard, duh. What if I don't want to read books or have draconic blood, but do these feats? Wizard has too much baggage. So mystics are loners. Most discover the secrets of their power through vague references in tomes of lore or a master of power. Doesn't sound internal to me. All right, they spend months in quiet contemplation, like a wizard, exploring their minds and leaving nothing uncovered, like a wizard. During this time, they shun society and typically live as hermits at the edge of society, like a wizard. A mystic who studied under a master works as a virtual slave, toiling under mundane tasks in return for the occasional lesson or cryptic insight, like a wizard. When mystics finally master their power, they return to the world to broaden their horizons and practice their craft, like a wizard. Some mystics prefer to remain isolated, like a wizard, but those who become adventurers aren't content to remain on the fringe of the world, like a wizard. Just saying. I love the idea that, like, even as player characters, you know, you're like, well, that sounds like a lot of work, and I'd rather be lazy. You know, we used to debate when we were kids, like, if we had the Force, like, would we use it to wipe our asses with? You know, we're like, well, I mean, you know, if I could, I would. Said all that to the tune of like a boss. Like a mage. Okay. Eccentric Minds. You know, it's funny. I will give this to 5th edition D&D. It's incredible how many words they spend saying so much and saying absolutely nothing. Like, it's like they've said a lot and yet they've said nothing. It's really interesting to me. Okay. In order to maintain their strict discipline and intense self-knowledge needed to tap into their power, mystics develop a variety of practices to keep their focuses sharp. These practices are reflected in taboo and quirks, strange little behaviors that govern a mystic's actions. These quirks are oaths or behavioral tics that help the mystics in the proper frame of mind while maintaining perfect control over their bodies and things. So you have perfect control over your minds and bodies, yet you have strange psychological and behavioral tics. Those seem not the same thing. While these taboos are harmless, they help cast mystics as outsiders. Few feel accepted by society, and fewer still care to be integrated with it. To mystics, the life of the mind is to feel away. I've noticed, well, this is a whole separate thing, but I've noticed that like D&D classes really go out of their way to be like, it's just like you know, they're weird and shunned by society, but they're super powerful, and their strange tics and weird behavior actually gives them incredible strength. It's kind of interesting, the application there. All right. Now, so this multi-sentence paragraph here talked about how they must develop these taboos and quirks. And then they said, to add some texture to your mystic, consider the quirks your character has acquired. These behaviors have no game effect, but your character might be irritated or upset if forced to break them. And right there is where you lose me in general. I just don't care. Right? What gets measured gets managed. If this isn't measured, then who cares? They're a great role-playing tool. The whole game is role-playing. You can roll or pick or create your own. So it means nothing and everything and nothing. And Dr. Metropolis, all this verbal vomit, and we haven't even touched a rule yet. Ayla says, maybe I'm just too jaded. I'm sure you are. But I agree. I don't want all this pointless flavor text. A single paragraph is usually enough to paint me a decent picture. Just tell me how the damn class works already. Especially considering that the mantra of the modern day role-playing game, right, is make it your own anyways. In fact, this whole sentence here was talking about how, you know, you must need these quirks, and then it says you might want to add one or not. It doesn't really matter anyways because they have no game effect. And, you know, you might get irritated if you have to break them. So they're not like, this would be far more interesting to me if it was like, you cannot cross running water. Like, you just can't, you know, like you're not physically incapable of it, but like you will not cross running water. Okay, now we've got something. Now we've got something interesting. But if you're just like, I'm going to be moody and irritated for the rest of the session because I had to cross running water, I'm like, that is just so vomitous to me personally. But that's just my style. That's how I roll. Okay. Aim to create 2 quirks to give them more of a chance to come into play. Due to an aspect of your awakening psychic power, you can no longer see birds. Kyle says, but your newfound family has to learn how to understand your quirks. It's like you don't even know how to role play, Derek. I do not. What's up, KC? Yep, we're checking out an old. Wait, my very first. I'm a virgin to Unearthed Arcana. Well, the 5e Unearthed Arcana. All right, so let's see what their quirks are. You never cut your hair. Now, see, by the way, they said you might want to roll twice to give them more of a chance to come into play. Remember how I said on the one the other day about not being able to see birds? I'm like, when would that ever come into play? You never cut your hair. You refuse to wear clothes of a specific color. I'm not going to lie. I've played 34 years of D&D or D&D adjacent games or role-playing games in general. And I almost could never even come close to telling you what the color of my character's clothes were, or certainly anyone in my party. They could have been naked, for all I know.
Duncan,
I really just don't know.
$5. Where
Hey,
does
Duncan.
it say I can psyop my imaginary weapon?
Right, Duncan. You're a little too early for that. We're not psyamping just quite yet. Now that's a psychic we can get behind, right? Hey, are you a psychic? No. I'm a magus who's using amped imaginary weapon to do sick ass spell strikes. Thank you, Duncan. That's at least that does something, I guess, you know. It says, as I mentioned, I played this class for years, can confirm that I can't even remember what quirk I even had, and can also confirm that it didn't matter one damn bit. The only clothes my character wore was a hat of disguise. Under that, she was butt naked. It's a little weird, Beowulf. That's a little weird. Is the mystic more play yourself with powers than playing a character with powers? Yeah, I mean, kind of. You know, Jake says, I've never once given the color of my character's clothes a second of attention. Correct. Right. But you certainly role played out your haircutting appointment during the shopping montage session, right? Because, like, for example, as far as I'm concerned, and I've been playing D&D for a very long time, as far as I'm concerned, every single player character I have ever GM'd and every single player I have ever played has never cut their hair. So that's it. You wear a mask. You don't wear footwear. You never consume alcohol. I mean, this is all just completely stupid. And by the way, you can just roll it. Like, you could just pick one. Anyways. Now, see, Daniel, that has a mechanical impact, and at least that matters. When creating a mystic, consider your character's background. How did you become a mystic? What first drew you to this practice? Are you self-taught or did you have a master? If you had a master, what is this relationship like? Now, I want to just take a quick second here and highlight everything that we've talked about so far in this, what we here at Knights of the Last call fluffy bullshit. You know, you spent years at the fringe of society. You're a loner. You had a master who you were a slave, virtually a slave to for years. You have, you know, your absurd mental discipline has caused you to create weird taboos and strange quirks, shunning you from society. And again, my 5e knowledge is a little light. But am I correct that I could level up and just take a level in Mystic via multiclassing? And just go, you know what? Yeah, I'm a Mystic now. Like, so it's like, what about all those years of living? What tome of power did you learn that from? Yeah, I got a quirk now. I don't bathe. I don't ever immerse myself in water, you know. I woke up today. I felt a little bit, you know, Quirk vociferously asserts that they're not just a wizard with angst. Yeah, I'm getting a sense of wizard with angst here. Or something to that extent. You know, an OCD wizard, you know, or maybe an autistic wizard or something like that. All right. Quick build, and what? Okay, you can make the mystic quickly by following these suggestions. As a mystic, you get the following class features: D8 per mystic level, which is, you know, I'm cleric druid level, I'm assuming. You get max at first level, right? This is all like, oh, I'm remembering this. Hit points at higher levels. Now, I'm interested. Actually, here, you know, again, I don't play 5e. I don't know anything about 5e. 5e is unknown to me. In a sense, but I am going to put up a poll here because I am curious here. All right, here we go. The poll is up. You can vote 1 or 2. So 5 HP and 5e, do you roll it or do you take the better than average? Like, it's crazy to me that it's literally better than the average. It's better than the average. Not just the average, it's better than the average. You are statistically hurting yourself by rolling. That seems crazy to me. Okay. All right. Overwhelmingly, we got some something. Although I respect the people who say, fuck it, I don't care. I'm going to roll it. Hope springs eternal, right? It's an unpopular opinion around here, but I hate rolling for stats. It depends on the game. It really does depend on the game. It depends on the game. It depends on the assumption or idea of balance. It depends on the longevity and expecting of the longevity and how long you expect the character to play. It depends on how much the stats matter. If stats matter a lot, then yeah, I can understand why people may not want to roll. All right, you have light armor, it's like leather, I'm assuming. Simple weapons, and you don't know how to use any tools. You have good intelligence and wisdom saving throws. And it's my understanding that despite the fact that they use all 6 stats for saving throws, like most of the saving throws in the game are just wisdom, constitution, and dexterity, correct? I get that there's occasionally an intelligence saving throw or a strength saving throw and a charisma saving throw, but I'm sorry. But, but it's interesting. It's interesting that you're like an ascetic who lives like as a monastic life, and those are the 2 that you get, but because, you're totally not a wizard, though. Okay. All right. Well, overwhelmingly, the vote was we take the better than average. You start with some equipment, a spear and a mace, leather armor. Now, see, nothing in this, nothing in this thing made me feel like I should be able to use any of this equipment. Like, why can I use a spear and studded leather armor and a crossbow? Tools rarely get used. Okay. I think Mystic is a monk who wants to be a Jedi. Now that I could believe, because if I go, like again, nothing in 5e. Let's hold on a sec. Let me see if we can find something here. Wait 1 minute. This is what we call Knights of Last Call a tangent. Here we go. Is that from this? Let's see. I thought that one of the D20 from 3rd edition had a mystic class. Also, yes, this is true. In Scum and Villainy, the Jedi Knight is called the Mystic, and instead of the Force, it's called the Way. Mystics are more like Force users. Jedi Knight / monk is 100% Mystic, so they're not psionic. Like, okay, let's actually do this here. Do you consider a Jedi psionic? Like, when you think of psychics, when you think of psionic powers, do you think of Jedi? I don't. Dr. Metropolis does. Okay. Wow. I guess I am very strange here then. Okay. I do not. All right. So here's the Mystic. Oh God, the return of the psionic points. 20 proficiencies. Okay, so we get talents, we get disciplines. This kind of reminds me of old Psionic stuff. We got our Psionic points. Psionic limits, I'm guessing, is like how many points we can spend in a certain power or something like that. We get a Mystic Order, some powers and abilities, and then we get ASIs. I know what that is. Okay, so we got, it sounds like we got a bunch of abilities here. Psi points are not greater than spell slots. Psi points are just very tiny spell slots. Look, you could be fine with not liking Vancian slots, but power psi points are just the same thing. It's just a more granular way of power accounting. And all it really does, by the way, is say you can use your higher level powers more often. That's all it really matters. All right. And this is, by the way, I think the first time that they're VP, they're Vancian points. Well, that's all I'm saying. The reason why people like Psionic points is that because now they don't have to cast their lower level spots, they can just cast a bunch of high level spell slots. Yes, but you do not disagree that they are just restructured slots. Okay, fine. So we are in at least agreement there. As a student of Psionics, you can master and use Psionic disciplines and talents. Psionic talent is a minor. Is this what we get one of these? Okay. A psionic talent is a minor psionic effect you have mastered. At first level, you know one psionic talent of your choice. You learn additional talents at higher levels. The talents known column of your mystic table shows the number of talents you know at each level. When that number goes up, choose a new talent. Okay. So we start with 1 and we get up to 4. And these are just sort of minor abilities. Psionic disciplines are a rigid set of mental exercises that allows us to manifest psionic power. A mystic masters only a few disciplines at a time. We start with 1 discipline, and we eventually learn up to 8. Okay. In addition, whenever you gain a level in this class, you can replace 1 discipline you know with a different one of your choice, which basically sounds like a spell, which basically sounds like... So basically, if I'm not... Am I crazy here to think that talents are cantrips and disciplines are your spells? Is that basically what it is? But we'll see here. Or something like that. We'll see. I don't know. Psi points. You have an internal reservoir of energy that can be devoted to psionic disciplines you know. This energy is represented by psi points. Each psionic discipline... See, none of this sounds like fantasy to me. Each psionic discipline describes effects that you can create with it. The number of psi points you have is based off of your level. The number shown for your level is their maximum. When it returns to your maximum after a long rest, it cannot go below 0 or over. Psi limit. Though you have access to a potent amount of psionic energy, it takes training and practice to channel that amount. There is a limit to the number of psi points you can spend to activate a discipline. For example, as a 3rd level mystic, you can spend no more than 3 psi points on a discipline each time you use it, no matter how many psi points that you have. Psychic focus. You can focus psionic energy on one of your psionic disciplines to draw ongoing benefits from it. As a bonus action, you can choose... I don't understand why people are so confused by the bonus action. It's very strange to me that people had a hard time with that. As a bonus action, you can choose one of your psionic disciplines and gain its psychic focus benefit, which is detailed in that discipline's description. This bonus lasts until you are incapacitated or until you use another bonus action to choose a different focus benefit. You can only have one at a time. Okay, so it's kind of like almost like a stance, right? Psionic ability is intelligence. Okay, so we use 8 plus our proficiency plus our int modifier. Okay, we use int. Okay. At first level, we choose our mystical order. The order of the Avatar, the order of the Awakened, the order of the Immortal, the order of the Nomad, the order of the Soul Knife. Hey, that's a 3rd edition class. The order of the Wu Gen. Hey, that's also a 3rd edition class, and also a 2nd edition AD&D class. Each of which is detailed at the end of this class descriptors. Each order specializes in a specific approach to psionics. This gives you special features. Okay, so this is our subclass. We pick it at level 1. Am I wrong? Am I stupid? Am I crazy? I thought you picked your subclass at level 3. At least I remember the Barbarian did that. And the Fighter did that. Interesting. Oh, yes. Okay. Okay. It's not standard 5e. Okay. Yes. Listen, no, I don't remember who said it in chat, but somebody said, okay, the horse has been beaten, but I'm just saying, why is it, if this is your mental focus and discipline, if we are conflating Jedi Knights with mystics, then why are we using intelligence? Do you think of Jedi as using their intelligence to master their force powers? I would think it would be wisdom or charisma. Just saying. I think we can all agree that it should be wisdom or charisma. Yes. Okay. It should be wisdom or charisma. Okay, fair enough. Actually, I'm not sure which one it should be. Like, it's easy to say charisma, but isn't charisma kind of like the sorcerer's thing? It's more of a force of personality. Wisdom, right? That's that inner will. That's that inner strength. That's that awareness. So I'm actually going to say it should be wisdom. I think is probably more appropriate. And already I would like the class a lot more if it was wisdom. Right, Yoda obviously has a very, very high charisma. His wisdom is sus at best, right? All right. At second, okay, so these are our powers we get. So we get all that. Okay, so we get a Psionics and Mystic Order. And then at second level, we get Mystical Recovery and Telepathy. We can draw Vigor from our Psi energy. Immediately after you spend Psi points on a discipline, you can take a bonus action to regain hit points equal to the number of Psi points you spent. So every time we cast a spell, we can heal for a couple hit points. I mean, that seems okay. I mean, most other classes casting spells don't get to heal whenever they use their abilities, and it doesn't sound like it costs you anything other than your bonus action. So that seems kind of cool. I mean, it's hard for me to judge like how many, like, you know, if you're level 2, right, you have 8 plus 5, so you have 13 plus your con twice, so you maybe have, I don't know, let's just say 17 hit points. I mean, regaining 2 HP a couple times a day, that seems pretty good. For free, basically. I mean, you have to spend a bonus action. I don't know how much this class's bonus action is taxed out, but it seems pretty good. Telepathy. At second level, your mind awakens to the ability to communicate via telepathy. You can telepathically speak to any creature you can see within 120 feet of you in this manner. You don't need to share a language with the creature for you to be understood. This is one of those things that, like, is interesting to sort of reflect on how the game has changed. Like, in first edition AD&D, this would be an insane power. In fact, like a Helm of Telepathy was like like a super rare, valuable magical item that was like, you know, something that you would be unbelievably stoked to get and would never see until, you know, higher levels. And here they just kind of throw it out for free because they're like, it doesn't really matter anymore. That's not what the game's about. So it's really interesting that they just kind of like, you know, just throw it out for free. And there's no limit, you know, not like once a day, twice a day. You don't need to share a language, just straight up telepathy. It's just, so it's interesting how like the abilities have, so, you know, have been balanced. Yes. Much like a psychic wizard. All right. Then we got our ability score improvements. I have no idea if it's good or not. 4, 8, 12, 16, 19, you know. Overall, I don't like, by the way, just as an aside, I don't like ability score improvement and having to choose. Let me rephrase it. I do like ability score improvement, but I would play 5th edition and not use feats. So that would be like, you know, not an issue. But if you're using feats, it seems pretty Faustian to sort of make people be like, hey, do you actually want to play the game better or do you want cool abilities? And of course, obviously there's some broken feats, so that's, you know, problematic at best. But that's neither here nor there. All right. So strength of mind is what we pick up at level 4 as well. You can replace your proficiency in wisdom saving throws whenever you finish a short or long rest. To do so, choose strength, dex, con, or charisma. You gain proficiencies in saves using that ability instead of wisdom. This change lasts until you finish your next short or long rest. Interesting. Really know if, I mean, I guess the idea is that you're using your wisdom to protect your body or your, you know, something like that. So, I mean, I guess that's a kind of a cool way to sort of structure it. I don't hate that. It's kind of cool. There's a little bit of strategery there. I don't mind the strategery. You get a dark vision, and you get a dark vision, you get a dark vision. Playing 5e without feats, what are we even doing here? Well, as I recall, I'm not a 5e expert. feats are optional. Like they're not part of the core game, I believe. I believe that's correct, right? Like I know that they're in the book, but like I think the default assumption, right, is that you don't use them. Is that am I saying that right? Or at least the implication, right? Because the implication is that you get an ability score improvement. That's what you get. You don't get a feat. So but yeah, the handful of times what I'm saying is the actual ability that you get as a character is an ability score improvement. And then there is an optional rule that you can potentially not take that ability score improvement to take a feat instead. So in that sense, right, the ASI is standard. And then even that feat rule was optional. Yeah, so Runeforge Tabletop says feats were optional in base 5e, but now they're built into 5.5. Which is so, again, this just shows you the difference between us. Like, we were just like, yeah, no, that's not what this game is about. And it's interesting that you say that. Hey, Kyle, thanks for the super chat, bud. I'm glad you got to hang out with us for a little bit. I hope you enjoy the VOD. Should be interesting. Thanks, Kyle. That's nice of you. Really appreciate it. And Woodland Fellowship, you say they're correct the way that the official rules of Monopoly do not include winning a pile of free cash and free parking. Right. And that, I mean, Monopoly is already a terrible game, and then playing with free parking actually makes the game worse. So maybe that's the same thing. They make the game worse. This is so interesting. People are so passionate about these feats. That's very surprising to me. But you know, again, there's a lot of things in 5th edition that, like, for example, Aaron and I, Smith, you know what we thought about 5e was really cool? We thought like bonds, flaws, and ideals were really cool. And apparently, and like we thought that system of using those to get inspiration was actually like a really, really cool like methodology for sort of mechanicizing role playing. And apparently nobody used them. And we're like, oh. I would hate to see you play any version of D&D before the year 2000, Beowulf. You know, somehow the game did survive, you know, for 25 years, 26 years with no feats. Just letting you know. There's a lot of games out there, you know, that don't have feats. All those OSR games, they don't have feats. Just saying. Plus, remember, feats tell you what you can't do, not what you can do. If we were playing, so anyways. Potent Psionics. At 8th level, you gain the ability to infuse your weapon attacks with psychic energy. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with a weapon, you can deal an extra D8 damage. This increases to 2d8 at 14th level. In addition, you add your intelligence modifier to any damage roll you make for a psionic talent. This seems low and not really make that much of a difference. But again, I don't really know how the damage situation works here in 5th edition, but that doesn't really feel potent for me. Oh yeah, 3E had terrible feats. Don't tell me weapon focus or dodge was a good feat. Everyone took them, but they were fucking horrible. They were so terrible. They were all absolutely terrible. Vital Strike was from PF1. Yes, Rob Stopper. We can go back to that. By the way, as an aside, if you're new to this channel and you want to support us because you think this is cool and you like us and you don't want to give me any money, which is totally understandable, but you would like to give me some money, check us out on Twitch, twitch.tv/nightsthelaastcall, and you can sub with your Prime sub. If you have Amazon Prime, you can use that to give us a couple bucks. Doesn't cost you any money. It's part of your Prime sub. If you're not using it, we'd appreciate it if you send it our way. I'm trying to do this whole full-time streamer thing, and every little bit helps. So Rob, I thought you were going to say something, Rob. No, so basically, feats that tell your character that you can do something, then therefore imply that if you don't have the feat, that you cannot do that thing. And therefore, the existence of feats is actually basically telling you you cannot do any of these things unless you have said feat. So that's the problem with feats. Consumptive power. At 10th level, you gain the ability to sacrifice your physical durability in exchange for psionic power. When activating a psionic discipline, you can pay its psi points with HP. Well, now that seems problematic. Oh, okay, but your current HP and HP max are both reduced by the number of hit points you spend. This reduction cannot be lessened anyways, and the reduction lasts until you finish to your max, lasts to your longest. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish. Okay, so you can only use it once, and it reduces your max HP. That's actually cool. That's kind of a cool power. That's actually kind of cool.
DR Metropolis tipped $3.
Hey, DR
on a tangent, but imagine giving fighter bonus feats, so you could tax him more on being a basic fighter. Very cool.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, hey, your thing is that you get more feats, and therefore you have to, but the good news is all of these feat chains require 5 or 6 feats. So you get to use all your feats in order to be able to fill out the feat chains to be able to do the thing that you wanted to do anyways that you could have done before. Yeah, so it is problematic. I kind of like this power, this feature. It doesn't seem like it seems very flavorful, and it's a little bit fidgety. You know, this is a bit, you know, I got to track my HP, my max HP gets reduced. It's a little bit, you know, it's a little bit finicky for sure. All right, beginning at 11th level, your mastery of psionic energy allows you to push your mind beyond its normal limits. Uh-oh, Duncan coming in.
Duncan DT tipped $5. Okay, the reason why feats are important in 5e is because leveling up and character creation is the only place where players have agency in these adventure plots, well besides choosing their found family.
So, Duncan, I certainly understand, and I think this is like a separate tangent to this. It's like a separate tangent to the whole idea of this stream, which is that when what we create, the reason we play games is because we want to make decisions. We want to make choices, and we want to make informed choices. And I talk about this a lot of my streams, that in order to make an informed choice, you have to have agency, you have to have knowledge, you have to have an awareness of what's going on. The problem, as you pointed out, is that in most people's games that they're playing these days, they actually have very little agency. And so the one place that they have agency is their build. Right? It's their character. It's the feats they choose, the spells they choose, whatever. And unfortunately, that has led a lot of people to really view that as the lens through which they can impact change to the game. And that is done through the character progression of choosing little doobdabs and beebdabs. And this is exemplified to the highest possible degree in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, where you get a feat or 2 feats every single level of the game. At level 1, you get a class feat and you get an ancestry feat. At level 2, you get a skill feat and a class feat. At level 3, you get a general feat. At level 4, you get a class feat and a skill feat. At level 5, you get an ancestry feat. At level 6, you get a class feat and a skill feat, etc., etc., etc. On top of static feature abilities that your class gives you. So this is basically their way of saying you have no agency in the fiction, but you have a ton of agency in the build. And so that is what people have focused on. This is what feats have done to the game. Because before the existence of feats, all character classes were the same. There were almost no choices to make. Most classes didn't get anything, and then the classes that did get something got to make no decisions about that. If you go look at a 3rd edition D&D Barbarian, they got rage at 1st level, they got fast movement, plus 10 feet, And then they picked up DR at like level 9, and it went up to like 5-DR, and they got like danger sense to get a bonus on the reflex saves versus traps, and they couldn't be flanked by lower level creatures. That's it. Those are the only class features they got. The rest of the class, blank. Most levels, you just gain hit points, and maybe your saving throws and your attack bonus get a little bit better. That's it. So what made your character unique was, number one, the magic items that you had. Dr. Stevel is correct, right? The loot that you got, the cool items that you used to haul out of dungeons, that was a big deal. But also what you did and how you changed the game, how you changed the world, what you did in the game. But if you're playing random 5e module, what you're doing is the same thing that everyone else that played that module's doing, which is going through the adventure beats, hitting the key milestones, defeating the right bosses, and going to the next part of the adventure. So you don't have any agency to make a difference in the game, in the world. You don't get to make those choices. And quite frankly, and truthfully, and I will support GMs on this, if your GM has pulled out an adventure path, and you or one of these big mega adventures from 5e, and you've agreed to play it, then if you start trying to, make hard lefts and go off you're kind of being a dick. You're kind of being an asshole, because that's not what the game's about. Your GM sat down to play this kind of linear story, and you agreed to that. And so it's kind of on you to do that. And so therefore you can't really change anything. The monsters that you're going to fight, you're going to fight them. The villains that need to die, the villains are going to die. So the only thing that you get to do is build your character and get to decide the like, it's like, it's like your dad's like, we're going for ice cream. You get to pick the flavor, but you don't get any decision about where we're going and what we're getting. We're getting ice cream. Now you can choose the flavor. You can choose if it's chocolate. You can choose if it's vanilla. You can choose if it's Rocky Road. You can choose to get sprinkles or not. I don't care, but we're going to get ice cream, and everybody's going. So, if what's crazy, there's I can't remember, there's a psychology experiment where, like, if you don't give people a choice, it's basically the premise of the Matrix, right? Which I think they took from that, which is like, if you give people a choice, then they'll go along with, even if it's a kind of a pointless choice, they'll go along with your crap. So it's like by having the build, the players feel like, okay, we'll go along with the linear storytelling because I get to make my decision. Well, it's not the illusion of choice. You're making a choice. I'm saying that, like, if I tell you, hey, if I tell you, like, we're going to this bad place, you might feel very, like, resentful about that. But if I say, hey, we can go to location A or location B, and maybe they're both not what you wanted to do, they're both not fun, but at least you get to make a decision, and so you feel like you had more input and more control of that. Karama coming in with a super chat says, and then NR invented perks, so now we have meta feats on top of our other feats to spend on messing with the world. Right. So in Pathfinder 2, when we play Never Northern Reaches as our mega campaign, we're like, we don't have enough feats. So not only do we need meta feats, but Karama, we also need bonus archetypes, free archetypes, and then even multiple bonus archetypes, so that we're making 4 or 5 feat choices per level. Yeah. All right. So Psionic Mastery, beginning at 11th level, your Mastery of Psionics allows you to push your mind beyond its normal limits. As an action, you gain 9 special, that's like standard action, right? You gain 9 special psi points that you can spend only on disciplines that require an action or bonus action to use. You can use all 9 points on one discipline, or you can spread them across multiple disciplines. You can't also spend your normal psi points on these disciplines. You can spend only the special points gained from this feature. When you finish a long rest, you lose any special points that you haven't spent. If more than one of these disciplines you activate with requires concentration, you can concentrate on all of them. Activating one of them ends any effect, and then increases to 11. You have one use of this feature. You gain an additional use at 13th, 15th, and 17th. Okay, so we spend an action. We get 9 free points. We can spend them on disciplines. And we can't use our normal points. Is that like at the moment we use it? Does this allow us to activate multiple? No, this is a different total, Kyle. So this feature does kind of confuse me. Well, maybe I just don't understand disciplines well enough yet, so maybe we'll get to that. And then at 20th level, it doesn't matter, whatever. Capstone ability, I don't really care. Resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, damage. That's sick. All right, cool. Okay. So Psionics is a mysterious form of power within most D&D worlds. Secretive orders study its origins and applications, or you just take it when you level up. Each of these orders pursues a specific goal for psionic powers. All right, so we have the Order of the Avatar, Emotion, mastering their inner life. We have Order of the Awakened, Order of the Immortal, Order of the Soul Knife, Order of the Nomad, and Order of the Wu Gen, old Oriental Adventures. And then we have our disciplines. So before we look at the subclasses, and we probably only look at one subclass, let's look at these disciplines. So disciplines. Okay, cost, bonus, instantaneous, concentration, targets, area effects, normal things. Okay. So each psionic discipline is associated with a mystic order. The following lists organize the disciplines by those orders. So Avatar can choose from these disciplines, and I believe we get up to 8. Is that right, if I remember? Yeah, we get up to 8 eventually. So that means that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So eventually we get all of these. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, this one is 9. Okay. I do see that they're throwing in some of the old psionic disciplines in here. I see like Intellect Fortress and Psychic Assault. And then the Wu Gen gets obviously some elemental stuff, which is pretty cool. Maybe we'll look at the Wu Gen. I was a fan of that back in the day. Okay, so let's say we're a Wu Gen, and we choose Mastery of Air as our first discipline. Is this an alphabetical order? I hope it is. Okay, here we go. Mastery of Air. Now, remember, or I need to remember, so we're on page 17, that we only can spend up to 2 points at a time, and we only have 4 points. So we can either use 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, or 2, 1, 1. Those are our options. Obviously, that quickly escalates by the time we're 3rd level. All right, let's go back to 17. All right, so when we psychically focus, which we can do with an action, so it's like a stance, right? So once we become Mastery of Air, we can use a bonus action, and we can achieve our psychic focus on Mastery of Air. And then while we are focused on this discipline, we take no falling damage, and we ignore difficult terrain while walking. Okay. Now, Wind Step, we can use 1 to 7. So we can use this right from the beginning, from the get-go. So we can spend 1 point or 2 points. As part of your move on your turn, you can fly up to 20 feet for each psi point spent. If you end this flight in the air, you fall, unless something else holds you aloft. Okay. And Wind Stream, each creature must make a strength saving throw, okay, or take D8 points of damage per psi point spent, and being knocked prone on a failed save. Okay. Now, we couldn't use this Cloak of Air, this Wind form, this Misty form, or this Animate Air until higher levels. I mean, that seems very cool. Now, of course, we only get 1 discipline, right? So at level 1, we would have Wind Step, Wind Stream, and that's it. Am I right? Is that correct? So I'm going to be doing a lot of Wind Streams, I guess. And I only have 6 points. I mean, I guess it's no different than having a couple spell slots. So I don't hate that. Okay. When do we get another discipline? We pick up another one 3. I mean, level 3, we know 2 disciplines. We have 14 points. We can spend 3. Okay. Now, I didn't see these talents. Is that at the end here? Ah, here we go. Okay. Minor abilities that require aptitude but do not drain your... Okay, so there are free abilities. Okay, talents are similar to disciplines, but with 3 important exceptions. You can never use your psychic focus on a talent. Okay. Talents don't require you to spend psi points to use them, and they are not linked to Mystic Order. So we can take whatever we want. So, for example, again, just another classic example. So we could take Beacon. As a bonus action, you can choose goes bright light for 20 feet and dim light for another 20 light, and it can, whatever, and you can, it's for hours. So basically, automatic light, everybody has it, but I'm sure nobody takes this right because the joke is in 5e, everyone has light spells or dark vision, right? So, as a bonus action, a one-handed weapon becomes melded with your hand. For the next minute, you can't let go of it, but it can't be taken from your grasp either. Okay. You erase your image from the mind of one creature within 120 feet of you. The target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw, or you invisible to it until the end of next turn. And that's just an action. Okay. But again, we could do these all at will. Not bad. So they're like our cantrips. I mean, this is basically cantrips. This is basically cantrips. It's light cantrip. It's a basic damage cantrip. I said these were cantrips, and they're like, no, they're not cantrips. They're totally cantrips. Oh, it's like Mage Hand. Oh, it's Mystic Hand. It's not Mage Hand. It's Mystic Hand. Huge difference. My mistake. Yeah, they're definitely cantrips. Okay, so they're just totally cantrips. Okay. I still don't know why I would want to play this class. Like, wouldn't you rather have access to like cool spells instead of being just locked into like 2 or 3 powers from your discipline? I don't know. I thought somebody said they weren't cantrips. All right, let's go to the poll. We'll let everybody pick here. Okay. Yeah. All right. All right. Twitch and put a number in if you want to vote for your vote. We'll cover this. So right off the rip, this reminds me a lot of the Psionic from 3rd edition, where you basically were like a sorcerer, which is you were even less flexible with your abilities. Right? You had very few. So one of the reasons that I like the wizard is because I like being able to have a wide breadth of spells that I can draw from and be able to select things, strategically. Now, of course, part of the thing with the game is the game really isn't about strategy anymore. But like being limited to just a small handful of abilities, and those abilities are inflexible unless I level up, and in which case I can change them, is very unappealing to me. So like that to me is very, also it's weird because it just doesn't really feel very psychic-y to me. Well, no, but I'm just saying, like, this question is, would this class make me like Psionics? And the answer so far is no, it doesn't. It just feels like a weird, boring, it feels like a boring class, if I'm being honest with you. Hey, what are you going to do? Air blast. What are you going to do? Air blast. What are you going to do? Air blast. It just seems like that's like the most boring thing in the world. You're going to figure out what's your best thing to do, and you're just going to spam that endlessly until that you don't do that anymore. Like that just, and you're going to use all your power points to do that, and then that's that. So it just seems like very, very, very boring to me. All right, well, Nomad has won hands down, and conveniently, it's also what is on the screen. So we'll take a look at what you get. Mystics of the Order of the Nomad keep their minds in a strange, rarefied state. They seek to accumulate as much knowledge as possible. All right. Bonus disciplines. At first level, you learn 2 additional psionic disciplines of your choice. They must be chosen from among the Nomad disciplines. Oh, okay. So you start with 3 disciplines. Okay. That's not bad. I was like, 1 discipline seems really rough. Breath of Knowledge. At first level, you gain the ability to extend your knowledge. Whenever you finish a long rest, you gain 2 proficiencies of your choice. 2 tools, 2 skills, or 1 of each. You can replace 1 or both of these selections with a language. This benefit lasts until you finish a long rest. Well, that's pretty cool. I like that. Memory of 1,000 steps. At 3rd level, you gain the ability to use Psionics to recall your steps. As a reaction, when you are hit by an attack, you can teleport to an unoccupied space that you occupied since the start of your last turn, and the attack misses you. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So basically, free reaction and once per rest to just turn an attack into a miss. At 6th level, you gain a superior talent for teleportation. Whenever you teleport, you can go an additional 10 feet. Wow. And Effortless Journey. Starting at 14th level, your mind can mystically move your body once on each of your turns. You can forfeit up to 30 feet of your movement to teleport the distance that you forfeited. You must teleport to a unoccupied space that you can see. And of course, that's not a psionic discipline, so it doesn't get increased by 10 feet. But hey, you know, that's cool. You can basically just teleport instead of move. Dr. Metropolis says, this just further proves we only need 3 classes, warrior, expert, and mage, and a million archetypes for each. Oh, no. Teleporting is cool. I mean, I'm down to teleport. You know, being able to teleport instead of walk is definitely a thing. It's very cool. You know, you're a psychic character. You're a nomad. Again, I don't have my 3rd edition book, but I'm pretty sure that there was a D&D 3E. I think there was something for D&D 3E, called the Nomad. I don't know if it was psychic or not. Maybe it wasn't. Nope, there was. Yeah, okay. That was one of the psychic classes from... Now, Nomad was a type of Scion who specialized in psychoportation discipline of Psionics, honing their skills and propelling and displacing both creatures and their objects across space-times. So, yep. Actually, Dan, I am actually not a fan of Worlds Without Number. While I do think some of Kevin Crawford's stuff is really, really cool, especially his world creation things, believe it or not, he is not the originator of that concept. It was actually Monty Cook in the Dungeons & Dragons DMG, which is what Monty Cook used when he used it to create Numenera, which also predates Worlds Without Number and Stars Without Number. Because in Numenera, you have 3 classes. They are called the Cipher, the Jack, and the... what are they called? The Glaive, which is basically the skill user, the magic user, and the warrior. So Adept. Wait, no, that's not what it's called in Numenera. In the DMG, it's called the Adept, the Warrior, and the Expert. In Numenera, it's called the Glaive, the Jack, and the... I think it's called the Cipher. I don't know what... I think it's called the Cipher. No, maybe... what is it called? Nano. Thank you. Nano. Oh, you're saying in the generic Cipher. Oh, Cipher is what the generic system is called. I'm not as familiar with Cipher. I'm more familiar with Numenera. Because, you know, the best part of Stars Without Number is the faction turn stuff in the back of the book. Absolutely. Have I ever checked out Tolos? I've played Tolos. I've actually played a couple of times with Monty Cook. In fact, Monty Cook used to be part of the 5e design team for a brief period of time. He wasn't part of the original design team, but they brought him in because they were having a hard time with the game. And then Monty Cook came in, and when I play tested 5e at Winter Fantasy, I think 2013, I played with Monty Cook a bunch while I was there that weekend or that 4 days. And but then they kicked him off the team. This is when 5e was going through this period of time where they wanted to make 5e really modular, and they wanted to basically create a very stripped down, extremely basic version of the game, and then have everything be very modular. Like you can add in a more tactical combat module. Like you can add in a more complex spell casting system. Like you can add in feats. You can add in additional complex character options. And it was going to be a very basic game that they were going to be able to like build onto modularly. And I think that's what they brought Money Cook on to do. And it died in playtesting or something like that. Like it just didn't make it out of playtesting. I think people, yes. So you think you remember that? Yeah, that's when we were really interested in the game. We were like, oh wow, that's crazy. Yeah, the playtests for 5e were way different and more forward thinking, and then it became an apology. Yes. But right, the modular 5e dream was so good, then we got vanilla 5e instead. That would have been so dope. I mean, everyone that hears this or talk, even some people are obviously aware of it, but when people hear about it, they go, oh my God, that's really cool. Like that sounds really awesome. I'm actually curious now that we're here and we're talking about it. 3rd edition D&D core rule books. Scions. Okay, yeah, the ones what you had in Psionic handbooks was the egoist, the nomad, the savant, the shaper, the seer, and the telepath. The way it worked in 3rd edition was like there was like one psionic thing for each ability score. So, and see, Soul Knife was a prestige class, which I always thought was kind of cool, but that like they tied like the each of the ability scores got tied to a different psionic discipline, which I always thought was really, really neat. Well, this Fubar Basilisk is 3.0. So originally in 3rd edition, this Soul Knife was a prestige class. In 3.5, it became a base class. So you are right, but it was not a base. It was from 3rd edition, but it was a prestige class, and then it got made into a core class in 3.5. So that is the answer to that. Preferred it as that. Why wait for the awesomeness? Soul Knife was a cool class, I will admit. Very, very, I mean, obviously, extremely, it's basically Psylocke, right? The class. But D&D 3.x core plus Book of Nine Swords plus Oriental Adventures plus 5e Mystic converted to 3.5. Now that could get me to play D&D again. Well, why would you even need to do that? You could just use the Psionic rules from 3rd edition. They honestly are pretty kind of close to what we've been seeing here in this Unearthed Arcana thing. Okay, well, teleporting's cool. I won't argue it. I mean, as someone who played 4th edition, where you get to, one of the core classes, one of the core races of the game, the Eladrin, gets an encounter teleportation. And in other words, every fight they can teleport. And then of course they have feats that let them do that multiple times. And then of course, obviously there's an entire class called the Sword Mage, which is a tank that is all about teleporting around the battlefield. In fact, their like reaction lets them teleport next to an enemy and then attack them with their basically attack of opportunity. So it's an attack of opportunity plus they get to attack, or plus they get to teleport. And that's at first level. Like that's right off the rip. And you should see what some of these characters are capable of once you get into like the teens, or yes, in 4th edition, the 20s, where, you have sword mages that can literally basically do AoE attacks, but it's because they're like Nightcrawlering, right? Where they're like, when Nightcrawler from the original X-Men 2, when he's attacking the White House, it's like they're just teleporting all over the battlefield. It kind of counts as an AoE attack, but it's really just them just like, kind of zipping around the battlefield and hacking everybody apart. It's pretty fucking sweet. That was, I mean, look, X-Men 1 had some problems. X2 was a much better movie, and part of the reason for it was that scene where you're like, wow, it's cool to see them just, unlocked. Listen. So when we played 4th edition D&D, it was very orchestrated. And of course, 4th edition D&D has 3 tiers of play: heroic, paragon, and epic. And in the heroic tier, we were playing like, fantasy soundtracks, stuff from MMOs, whatever, WoW or EverQuest or, Elder Scrolls games or whatever. We were playing very like traditional Lord of the Rings, like very traditional fantasy music and heroic. When we got to Paragon, okay, that's levels 11 through 20, we started playing like trailer music, right? What's that name of that band? Two Steps from Hell. Is that the name of the band? Like they just make trailer. It's called like trailer music. So we started playing like Two Steps from Hell. We started playing like trailer music. We started playing this more like epic, over the top. When we got to epic tier, 21 or higher, we only played like death speed metal, but it's like the nerdy death speed metal, like Hammerfall or Dragon Force. And so like when our fights would break out, it would be like, and it was like just like, it was just like completely over the top. No, I do not secretly love Doom music, right? Very just like it was pretty cool. Was 4th edition first level characters comparable to levels 3 to 5 level in other editions? Oh yes. Tim, props to you, my friend, for remembering the Descent 2 soundtrack. Hell yeah, buddy. Travis says 2 Steps from Hell. Now there's a name I haven't heard. Like we're going way in the way back machine. Okay, we're going on the way back machine. Yes, and I would say yes in the sense that they had a lot more hit points than most of your first level characters that you're probably used to. They had a lot more capability. A first level 4th edition character would start with a daily power, an encounter power. They would start with a racial power, and they would start with 2 at will powers. So, to put it into comparison, you could have, a first level Dragonborn, character could have an ability that lets him leap across the battlefield, smash his axe down. He can breathe fire. And that's not like a once a day ability. That's like every 5 minutes. That's just a basic class right out of the core player handbook, fighter and Dragonborn. You were pretty special. And you had a lot of hit points. You had a lot of healing surges. Now, of course, nowadays we have hit dice, but remember that a healing surge healed you for 25% of your hit points. So, 4 healing surges was all it took to heal your character from literally 0 to full. And that's assuming you didn't have anything that gave you a bonus, which many powers and abilities did, that gave you more hit points when you used a healing surge. So, a character like a fighter might start, depending on their constitution, they might start with like 12 or 13 healing surges per day. And so that means that they have the ability to heal themselves. Well, remember, there's no other way to heal yourself in 4th edition with an asterisk. There's a couple ways. But whenever you get healed, you have to use a healing surge. Even if a cleric heals you in 4th edition, it uses one of your healing surges. It just makes them better, stronger, and you don't have to take time out of your day to use it. But you could basically go from 0 to full like 4 or 5 times a day without ever even having a cleric. So from that perspective, yes, I think they were pretty powerful. This is bribe money for checking out the Immortal Order and the Discipline Powers. They are fantastic. Also, if you weren't rocking out for boss fights, what are we even doing here? Bribery is in effect. All right. Let's take a look at the Immortal. In the past, I would have been above such callous things, but now I need money, so I can be bought. Okay, the order of the Immortal use. Stay secure. Prepare for Windows 10 end of support. Fuck you, Windows 10. The Order of the Immortal uses psionic energy to augment and modify the physical form. Followers of this order are known as Immortals. They use psionic energy to modify their bodies, strengthening them against attack and turning themselves into living weapon. In 3rd edition, these were called Shapers, I think. Yeah, they were called Shapers. Like they were capable of creating their, they were kind of like T-1000 from Terminator 2, right? They could like shape, make their hands into knives, and they could do all sorts of really cool physical body stuff. All right. Starting at first level, your HP maximum increases by 1 per mystic level. So you get an extra hit point. Okay, cool. In addition, when you aren't wearing armor or wielding a shield, your base AC is 10 plus Dex plus Con. Love it. That's cool. At 3rd level, your psionic energy grants you extraordinary fortitude. At the start of each of your turns, you gain temp HP equal to your int modifier. That's very cool. Also, this is basically stolen from a 4th edition fighter subclass called the Battle Rager, and basically they got this exact ability. And it was a very cool power. They were a tank, of course, fighter. Oh, we lost it there. Okay, here we go. Immortal Awaken. Here we go. Surge of Health. And I can confirm it was fun and it was cool. Starting at 6th level, you draw on your psychic focus to escape Death's Grasp. As a reaction, when you take damage, you can halve the damage against you. Your psychic focus immediately ends if it's active, and you can't use it again until you take a rest. You can't use this feature if you can't use your psychic focus. Now, let me ask a question to the 5e people in the crowd. If I have resistance, say, to fire, and I take 100 fire damage, I have resistance to fire, so that goes down to 50, right? And then if I were to use my psychic focus to do a surge of health, would it take then that 50 and reduce it further to 25? Because if it does, that's really cool, and I like that. If it doesn't, that's unfortunate. The wording of this halves it twice. All right, I'm a big fan. Because one of the things I don't like about balanced games is that you feel bad because, you have this thing that would help you, but because you're already being helped by something else, it's like, sorry, it doesn't do anything. I hate that. That's not cool. All right. Immortal Will. Starting at 14th level, you can draw on your reserves of psionic power to survive beyond death. At the end of your turn, while it's 0 HP, you can spend 5 psi points to immediately regain a number of HP equal to your mystic level plus constitution modifier. I mean, you can't die anyways, so fuck it. Let's just, fuck it, we ball. Let's go hardcore. The final version may have been you can spend your reaction to gain resistance. Right. And that's why I was saying, because it's interesting that they use the word here. They don't use the word resistance. They do use the word have, which is kind of interesting. Hey, what's up, Open World Addict? Good to see you. All right. Now, there's other examples of halving damage without resistance of 5e. See Uncanny Dodge. Interesting. I mean, I personally think that's kind of cool. Like, I think it's cool that stuff can stack. I mean, I'm for it. I like that kind of stuff. In fact, Tim is in chat. I mean, he knows, You May Penguin, that we always let shit like that stack because it just feels weird to be punished for already having that ability. And then you're like, cool, so I should be really good at it and taking no damage. And it's like, no, it doesn't do anything. All right, so we're going to look at the immortal disciplines because Ayla paid. Ayla said, we got adaptive. Okay, so does it tell me? Okay, it does. Okay, adaptive body. Now, remind me, we start with 1, and then we get to pick 2 more at level 1, right? Because we're an immortal. Is that how that works? So we would have 3 of these disciplines at level 1. Is that right? Just making sure I know how the class works. Okay, cool. You can alter your body to withstand your surroundings, allowing you to withstand punishing environments. With greater psi energy, you can extend this prediction to others. Psychic focus. While focused on this discipline, you don't need to eat, breathe, or sleep. To gain the benefits of a long rest, you can spend 8 hours engaged in light activity rather than sleeping during any of it. Again, mostly flavor because food and water don't really matter in most of the cases. What's interesting is you don't need to eat, breathe, or sleep, but apparently you still do need to drink water. Oops. No, but I mean, that's cool. I mean, again, right off, this is right off the rip. You're just like, yeah, you no longer have to, you're level 1. You no longer have to, eat or breathe or sleep. All right. We can also do environmental adaptation as an action. You or a creature you touch ignores the effects of extreme heat or cold environmentally for the next hour for 2 psi points. Okay, it's not going to come up, but that's pretty cool. Adaptive shield. So now this is 3 psi. We won't be able to do this right away, but I think we can start doing this at level 3. When you take acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage, you can use your reaction to gain resistance to damage of that type, including the triggering damage until the end of your next turn. Very cool. Especially, like I said, when that stacks with that other thing that we get, which is pretty sweet. Energy adaptation. As an action, you can touch one creature and give it resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage, your choice, which lasts until your concentration. Thunder damage is the 5e term for sonic damage. Is that right? They just call it thunder damage, which is kind of more flavorful, I guess. And this does have the concentrate. Okay. And then lastly, flat out energy immunity. Now, the problem is I hate being locked in to having these powers and abilities. There's some days when I would want this. There's some days that I wouldn't want this. This is why I prefer the wizard. I mean, I don't know. It's just my thing. I don't know. This doesn't seem psionic to me, but that's fine. All right. That's cool. I mean, I like these. These are cool. These seem powerful. Not taking damage is sweet. Having an immunity to energy, sweet. And you can only have one thing concentrating at once, right? Unless we use that like super mental focus thing that lets us concentrate on all the things that we used on it in one go. Is that the way that I'm reading that correctly? It's been a hot minute. You see, when we played 5e and we used my willpower subsystem, you paid for concentration in ongoing willpower points instead of using concentration, I recall. So when we played, last time we played 5e, we didn't use the concentration rules. We used a willpower reduction system. Like, what the fuck's willpower? It was a resource that you had. Don't worry about it. Bestial form. All right, here we go. Turning your shit into weapons. All right. While focused, you have advantage on wisdom animal handling checks. All right, we found a winner. We found a winner. By the way, I mean, I'm sure we'll change it up. But right now, if I'm starting as an immortal, I'm definitely starting with adaptive body. No, maybe I'm not. Because at first level, it's not that great. I mean, how often do we really need this at low levels? Extreme heat or cold, is that really going to come up? Are people really doing, do people really use extreme environments in 5th edition? All right, bestial claws can go all the way from 1 to 7. You manifest long claws for an instant and make an attack. It does D10 slashing damage per psi point spent. Good night, open world addict. So if I spend 7 psi points, I do 7 D10 slashing damage, and I have to hit, and I have to spend the points before I know if I hit. Is that good? I mean, D10 seems like it's a decent amount. I mean, what do we have, like 70 points at the end? I don't know, but it's one guy, one target, and we have to hit. All right, bestial transformation. As a bonus action, you can alter your physical form to gain different characteristics. When you use this ability, you can choose one or more of the following effects. Each has its own psi points. Add them together to determine the total cost. This lasts for 1 hour, cool, until you die, right, or until you end it. So 2 psi, you can gain gills, you can breathe air and water, cool. But we can all add this all together as one thing. We can grow climbing, flight, keen senses, perfect senses, tough high. We can kind of combo it. I mean, that seems pretty cool. Not a whole lot going on in here, but obviously very flexible. Right off the rip, we could use tough hide. We could use swimming. We could use keen senses. We could use climbing. Bestial might be on the list. So it's great if you know you'll hit. All right, fair enough. All right, brute force. You augment your natural strength with psionic energy, granting you the ability to do incredible feats of might. While focused, you have advantage on strength athletics checks. This seems like this would be a little bit more useful than wisdom animal handling checks. Brute strike. As a bonus action, you gain a bonus to your next damage roll against a target that you hit with a melee attack during your turn. It is 1d6 per point of psi damage spent, and the bonus damage is the same type as the attack. If the attack has more than one damage type, you choose. So obviously, right, you spend 7 psi, well, this is like high level, of course, but we spend 7 psi points to add 7d6 as a bonus action, and then as as a melee weapon attack, we spend 7 points, and we do 7d10 plus 7d6. That doesn't seem too bad. But isn't like HP bloat like insane or something? In people always talk about HP bloat being crazy in 5e. Like, is that really that much? Like, it's on average, it's going to be 63 damage plus, whatever static modifiers get added, right? So maybe, I don't know, 65, 67, 68 damage. Is that great? Good night, Moonlit. Knockback. When you hit a target with a melee attack, you can activate this as an ability as a reaction. The target must succeed at a strength. It's interesting because, like, you're having to, like, I mean, I don't mind this per se, but you are, it's interesting how you have to manage, like, they're using these actions as resources. Reaction is a resource. Bonus action is a resource. And that's kind of interesting. Like I fundamentally don't like the idea of using a reaction on your own turn as a reaction to your own ability. It kind of like defeats the point of what a reaction is. But in any case, and correct me if I'm wrong, but 5th edition uses attack of opportunity is not a reaction, right? It's just like its own thing. At least that's the way it was in 4th edition D&D. In 4th edition D&D, you had one opportunity action per each opponent's turn, and then you had an immediate action, which could be an immediate interrupt or it could be an immediate reaction. They're both immediates. Oh, attack of opportunity is a reaction. Oh, okay. So AOO uses your reaction. Okay. In 4th edition, it did not. In 4th edition, it was a different thing. For context, an adult red dragon has 256 HP. Okay. That doesn't seem that bad. You can jump a lot, or you can get a +5 bonus to your strength checks. Wow. So between this and this, you could pretty much just kind of like destroy any strength athletic check in the game, I would imagine, right? +5 bonus seems like a lot, and then advantage seems like a lot with a +5 bonus. That's pretty good. I mean, you will be rocking the brute force for sure. Okay. I mean, I like brute. I like bestial. All right. Celerity. Well, I played enough Vampire the Masquerade to know that this is probably one that everyone takes, but, which is to say, I didn't play much Vampire Masquerade at all, but everyone I ever knew always had a celerity. When you're focused, you have 10 increased speed. As a bonus action, you can increase your 10 speed by 10. As a bonus action, you can take the dodge action. Doesn't that give everybody disadvantage to target you or something like that? Isn't that what dodge does? Blur of motion. You can cause yourself to be invisible during any movement during your turn. Surge of speed. As a bonus action, you either don't provoke attack for opportunity or you have a climbing speed equal to your walking speed, aka it's time to be anime and run up walls. Surge of action. As a bonus action, you can make a dash or make a weapon attack. That was just to get more attacks on their turns, aka the reason that people played Vampire the Masquerade, right? Wasn't it to just, be awesome matrix of people before you could do that? Celerity is just as awesome here. I mean, obviously this is all really powerful. Broken. This seems really powerful to me. Agile defense. If dodge does what I recall it doing, which I believe, like I said, gives everybody disadvantage to target you, that seems ridiculous. I mean, obviously there might be an instance where you need to use your bonus action for something else, but all things being equal, sure, I'm going to take this. Corrosive metabolism. You control over your body allows you to deliver acid or poison. While you are focused, you have resistance to acid and poison damage. I like that you have to make some interesting choices about what you want your psychic focus to be. I think that's pretty cool. It's just D10 acid, but at least this one is half if they fail. So I kind of like this one a little bit better than the attack roll because at least you're going to get to do half damage. Then the bestial strike. Venom strike lets us do it as a con save within 30 feet. It's a little bit less damage, and they are poisoned until the end of your next turn. On a successful save, they take half, and they are not poisoned. Remind me what the poisoned condition does. My 5e is weak. My 5e foo is weak. I don't remember what poison does. No, I know it's D10 per point spent. I'm just saying it's 7d10 save versus instead of 7d10 miss. You know what I mean? Poisoned is disadvantage on basically all checks you make. Well then, that's pretty cool. Acid spray. As a reaction, when you take piercing or slashing damage, you cause acid to spray from your wounds. Each creature within 5 feet of you takes 2d6 acid damage, but that does not scale. Breath of the Black Dragon. For 5 psionic points, you can exhale a wave of acid in a 60-foot line. Each creature in the line must make a con save or take 6d6 acid damage or half as much. You can increase the damage by 1d6 per additional psi point spent on it, which I believe the max we can spend is, what? 7. Okay. So 6d6, 7d6, 8d6. Or the Breath of the Green Dragon, our ultimate. It's a 90-foot cone, con, 10d6, half as much on a save. I mean, that seems cool to me. All right, we got a bunch of avatar disciplines here that we're skipping. Diminution. Diminutive. How do you pronounce that word? Diminution. I mean, it's not a real word. Diminishment. Diminution. Diminution. Anyways. Diminution. Yeah. All right. We can shrink down. We get advantage to stealth. We can have a miniature form, which we can get for 10 minutes with concentration. We become tiny. We get +5 to dex stealth checks. Again, these are like, I like how they just like double the fuck up on all these things where you're like, is it a real word? Oh. It is a real word.
Diminution.
Diminution.
Diminution. Diminution.
According to Google.
Diminution. Diminution. Diminution.
Oh, that's interesting. No, your pronunciation is quite wrong, Beowulf, because the actual pronunciation is dim. That's the first syllable. Dim. Then is an I. Then nu. And then shun. So you did not have your vowels right. And even this one's not right because this is dim in. No, the I is by itself. The nu is by itself. So the N needs to go with the U, and the is by itself. Anyways, I love how they just double the fuck up on this because they're like, hey, you already get sight, you already have advantage. Now you get +5 bonus as well. As a bonus action, you can shift to incredibly small size and then suddenly return. Oh my God. All right. The Ant-Man attack. Got it. Okay, cool. I'm glad that some people enjoy this stuff. That's fine. In their fantasy TTRPG, by the way, I would not. That's the other thing I hate about the Psychics. It's like they don't even try to pretend like we're playing a fantasy role-playing game anymore. So it's crazy. As a reaction, when you are hit down by an attack, or as a reaction, when you are hit by an attack, you shift down to minute size to avoid the attack. It misses, and you can move 5 feet, and then you pop back up. Microscopic form. You get +10 to stealth, +5 to AC, and can move from one to thing, but you can't make weapon attacks. Okay. Now here's this is an example of where I'm like, there are instances where this would be really cool, but like, would I really want to price myself into this? I don't consider this fantastic. I actually don't. I don't consider this fantastic. I don't consider this fantasy. I don't. I really don't. I don't know why. I just don't. All right. Giant growth, which is obviously the opposite. You get increased 5 feet. That's pretty good. Ogre form. You get 10 temp. You You deal an extra D4. Remind me what breaks concentration. Is it whenever you get hit? But like if I have temporary hit points and I take damage, does that break concentration? Because I like didn't actually take damage. My temp HP took damage. What's the DC? Is it just half the damage or DC 10, whichever's higher? Okay, that sounds somewhat familiar. I'm just wondering, like, does it have to be real hit points, or is it even if you take 10 hit points? Oh, all right. You deal an extra D4 bludgeoning damage on a hit, and your reach increases by 5 feet. If you're smaller than large, you become large, and then giant. Like, see, I wouldn't take this because it's just like you're not. I mean, I guess eventually you end up with so many disciplines. I guess it doesn't matter, but it's just like there's like so little flexibility in this, and it's just like it does the one thing, and I just wouldn't really be interested in this. Intellect Fortress is sweet just because that's like original. Iron Durability. You become living metal. You just straight up get +1 bonus to AC. Well, now I found the one that everybody takes. Okay. Iron Hide. When you're hit as a reaction, when you're hit by an attack, you get +1 bonus to AC for each psi point you spend on the ability. This bonus lasts until the end of your next turn. This bonus applies against the triggering attack. Now, what's interesting here, this is one of those powers that's really going to depend on your dungeon master, right? Like, do they tell you how much they hit by? Are you guessing? Do you just keep spending a point? Do you have to price in before they're hit? You know, do you know the number? Like, you know, some DMs are just gonna be like, they hit, and they're not going to tell you why they hit. You know what I mean? Like, it's interesting that, but it's also nice that it lasts until the end of your next turn. So not only do you get it for the rest of the attacks, but also even during your turn, if you were to say make attacks of opportunity. So this might be probably one of the most powerful abilities that we have seen yet. I mean, agree, Lolly. At my table, the players would know, because I'd be like 17, you know, I would just tell them what I rolled. Steel Hide. As a bonus action, you get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. So that's just straight up sick. Iron Resistance. As an action, you gain resistance until concentration ends. Which is kind of weird because you're like, this reminds me of like the rusted metal thing from the kineticist from Pathfinder 2. You're like, I'm taking this to gain resistance to damage. But now I'm taking damage, which is why I took this power. And now I'm going to lose this power because I took damage. You see where there's like a kind of like a cognitive dissonance in that ability? For those of you who don't know, the Pathfinder 2 kineticist has a metal thing that gives you this armor. But the armor shatters if you get hit. And it's like, but I took this thing to be heavily armored. It seems very sad that like when here, let me put it this way. When you gain iron resistance, you should be thinking to yourself mentally, man, I want to get hit and I want to take a lot of damage because it's going to be sweet because I'm going to take half as much and it's going to make me feel really, really cool. But then you're also thinking, I don't want to take any damage because if I do, I'll have to make a concentration check and I could lose the power that I just blew 7 psionic points on. You see, that's what I call a mixed message, and I don't really like that. No, agreed. I'm not debating that. I'm just saying, yeah, you know, it's just kind of like it's kind of counter-purpose. It's kind of just it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, and I've used this example before in Pathfinder 2, and this is more of like from a play pattern experience. In Pathfinder 2, the champion ostensibly is there to protect their allies. And they have a reaction, which is really cool. It lets them reach out and protect their allies. And then instead of taking damage, they take much less damage. Very cool. Very thematic. And so appropriately, you're in the mentality of, I don't want the enemy to target my allies because that's bad. I want to protect them. But you're also, as a player, like, but I kind of want the enemy to target my allies because I kind of want to use my cool power. And, like, it's a weird tension where you're like, I hope my allies get attacked because I want to be cool and I want to use my cool champion power. And if none of my allies get attacked, I mean, cool, I guess they're safe, but also I didn't get to do my cool thing that I chose my class for. So that's where it's kind of like, there's kind of like this weird overlap of the way that the play pattern of the game kind of breaks out. Do we have any more here? Immortal, Wujen. These are all Wujen abilities, right? All the masteries. Wujen, 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 Wujen. Wujen. How boring that the nomadic ones are all just called nomadic, 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 nomadic. All right. Psionic Restoration. You wield psionic energy to cure wounds and restore health to yourself and others. Cool, the healing one. While focused on this discipline, you can use a bonus action to touch a creature that has 0 hit points to stabilize it. As an action, spend psi points, 1d8 per psi point. As an action, touch a creature, spend 3 psi points, remove blind, deaf, paralyze, or poison, or remove 1 disease. And for 5 points, you can Breath of Life somebody. That seems pretty good. Restore Vigor. Remove any ability score damage, HP max reduction, or reduce its exhaustion level by 1. So boring but effective. I mean, you can't say that. You know, it's just boring but effective. Psionic Weapon. There we go. Whenever you're focused this discipline, choose one weapon you're holding or your unarmed strike. When you attack with this discipline, your damage is psychic and magical. And until you reach 6 levels of Mystic, you don't add your strength or dexterity modifier to the weapon's damage rolls. Huh? What? So it's worse until you get to 6th level, and then it just is the same that it would apparently be. Good night, Sunhawk. Take care. By the way, Sunhawk, thank you for one night. Well, Steven went out to schmooze. I was invited. I just didn't want to because I was dead inside after the game, or after the day of the con. We went to. I went to the hotel bar. I had a wonderful a bowl of beef stew, and I had a lovely appetizer of buffalo chicken dip all to myself, courtesy of you. Thank you, Sunhawk. Anyways, Ethereal Weapon. As a bonus action, you temporarily turn your weapon into pure psionic energy. This ignores the target's armor, requiring no attack roll. Instead, they make a dex save. On a failed save, the target takes the attack's normal damage. On a successful save, they take half damage. Cool. Lethal Strike. Charge it up, D10. Hey, look, I found the thing that everybody probably uses over and over and over and over again. Unfortunately, I guess you can't do both of these, huh? Augmented Weapon. As a bonus action, touch a simple magic. It becomes a magic weapon with +3 to hit and +3 to damage. Again, this is boring. This is just numbers go burr damage. So boring. Psychic Blast. Oh, here they are. Look at that. All the original ones. Yes. Psychic Crush, Psychic Blast, Id Insinuation, Ego Whip, and Psionic Blast. No, this is like one of the most boring abilities that I could possibly ever imagine being printed in a game. Right here. This is so boring. For starters, it's not lethal. If you use it, do they die? Then no, it's not lethal. As that implies that my strike is not normally lethal. So this is what I talk about when I talk about the problem with abilities that don't change the fiction. And this doesn't change the fiction. You know what I mean? This is a general problem with D20 games, but it's also a problem here. Yeah, but it does crazy damage, and that's the only reason it needs to be great. And look, the TTRPGs are played by everyone for many different reasons. And for some people, it's to do sick deeps, bro. And for me, it is not. That, historically, is not the reason why people wanted a magic sword. At least in the original game, Dr. Metropolis. They wanted magical weapons because there were certain creatures, many creatures in the game that were just flat out immune to weapons that weren't of a high enough magical potency. Golems, many undead, certain other magical creatures literally could not be attacked. It wasn't even a question of, they take less damage. Like, they literally could not be harmed unless you had incorporeal creatures, ethereal creatures, required +1, +2, even +3 weapons to hit them. In the grand scheme of things, it didn't really matter, you know? Aren't we reviewing both Immortal and Nomad talents, the first by bribery and later by vote? No. The question was what subclass we were going to look at. And we looked at the Immortal the Nomad subclass. I was going to look at the Immortal, but LS specifically defined the Immortal talents. And so we looked at those. But we did not say we were going to look at the Nomad talents. We said we were going to look at the Nomad subclass, which is very clearly a different thing because they're in different parts of the book. Here, we'll look at the third eye because it's right here. I'll throw you guys a bone. You create a third psychic mind. Oh, you gain dark vision. But if you have dark vision, it's even better dark vision. You get tremor sense for 30-foot radius. Cool. You get an advantage on wisdom checks for a minute. Cool. You can see through objects that are up to 1 foot thick within 30 feet of you. Sweet. All of this would seem very cool to me, say, in a dungeon exploration game that apparently D&D is not. True Sight, which is just True Sight. I mean, yeah, I guess that's fine. I don't know. None of it seems. It's just not my thing. It's just not. I mean, nothing I've seen here is very. Honestly, you know, as someone who's read third edition Psionics, this is nothing. This is nothing that I've really seen though. You know. I mean, this is true, Dr. Metropolis. This is just 5e though, right? Don't most spells just make combat more trivial or faster? Yeah, probably. I mean, I can't speak to all of 5th edition because I have not played all of 5th edition, but fundamentally, I was under the impression that 5th edition did have spells that, had interacted with the fiction, interacted with the exploration and stuff like that. I mean, there's stuff here that's fine. For me, the issue is I just hate. I mean, to be clear, I don't like playing sorcerers either because I hate choosing. Hey, these are the 2 spells that I know, and I don't have any flexibility in that, and being locked into that. And that's very frustrating for me. Now, question: when we gain disciplines, can we gain a discipline of any type, or can we only take disciplines from our list? Like if we're an immortal, can we pick up, Master of Water? Got it. Any type. Okay. Well, there's a fair number of choices here. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is more interesting to me than, I don't know, a barbarian or a rogue. The other thing I don't like about this, so Lollipop actually kind of hit on something here, which I think is really, really important. Which is the other thing is that there was a necessity in the original game of D&D that tied you and your character's progression to the actual fiction of the game. Which is to say, if you were a fighter, your character didn't get any abilities. So you had to go out and you had to explore and you had to go into dungeons because you wanted to find magic armor, magic shields, magic weapons, cool magical helms, belts that made you become temporarily ethereal, boots that let you walk on water. That's how you gained special abilities. You didn't do it by like leveling up and just choosing a new thing from a list. Now you might say wizards, well, don't they just get spells? Yeah, but they didn't get spells automatically when they leveled up. Wizards had to find their spells. The reason why wizards went adventuring is because that's where you found new spells to add to your spell book. You did not get free spells every time you leveled up. So wizards had to find their spells. You may really like a spell and you're like, oh, I can't wait. Maybe you never find a fireball scroll. So you don't just get to pick fireball. It's not the way it worked. You had to adventure. You had to find it. In fact, if you want to be really, 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 really mean and you just want to realize how much the game has changed, okay, if we go back to first edition, AD&D, Player's Handbook, okay. If we go to your character ability scores and we go to intelligence, when you do find that fireball spell and you have it and you go to learn it, you have to roll on this chance to know each listed spell thing. Now, I'm sorry, let me rephrase it. When you gain a level, you have to go through every single spell that is in the game and roll this percentage chance. And if you fail this roll, your character can never learn that spell ever. And keep in mind, you're rolling 3d6 or maybe 46 drop 1. So having like a 17 or an 18 is very unlikely. Your wizard probably has a 14, 15, 16 int. So generally speaking, you only had about a 2/3 chance of even being capable of learning that spell. This minimum number of spells from a level meant like no matter how many times you failed this roll, you always had a chance to at least know. But by the way, that didn't mean you knew them. You still had to go and find them. Right? So it was a very different game, and it tied you into the fiction. It tied you into the world. When you look at this ability, when you look at all these abilities, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter where you're adventuring, how you're adventuring. Nothing that is occurring in the game will impact or change your experience with this class at all. This class and its build exists entirely independently of what's going on in the game. Now, that is a criticism not of the Mystic. It's a criticism of just kind of the way that D20 has changed in general. But it's very, very apparent here. In some ways, Dr. Metropolis says, this sounds unfun. I spend weeks and then I just can't learn magic as the magic class. I'm good, lol. Well, magic was very powerful. So with great power came great responsibility, but also came great cost, I guess, is the name of the game. So yeah. So I guess the question is, so why didn't this ever make it into a book? Did they say? I mean, it seems like it's a more complicated class than any of the other things that I've seen in the game, for sure. But I mean, compared to what? I mean, how many fucking pages and pages and pages and pages of wizard and cleric spells are there in the game? Like hundreds? I don't know. Like a lot? So yeah, I mean, is it more complicated than a rogue or a fighter or a barbarian? Sure. But I mean, when you really think about it, is it much that fighter? It was deemed too powerful. People bitched it was too OP. In what capacity? I mean, to be fair, this shit seems like some fucking Jedi Matrix anime shit in a game where you're supposed to be like, I'm a fighter with an axe. I'm a sneaky rogue who lives by the docks. And you're like, I'm a Jedi Knight. I'm flipping over dudes like it's the Matrix, and I'm going into bullet time, and I'm teleporting like a mutant, and then summoning a lightsaber out of my hand, and then ripping someone's head off. Like, are we really playing the same game here? Okay, it's not a lightsaber, it's a psionic mind blade. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, those three things, if you had a lot of choice and you were very versatile and you could also do a lot of damage, does seem like it's a combination to make, things OP. Dr. Mishravel says, enjoy your dysentery by the docks. I'm going to run up swords and do some cool shit. You know what? More power to you. I'm just saying in a game where those are the other classes and those are the other expectations, this does seem a little bit out of place. Now, again, I want to highlight that this problem only exists in the modern context of D&D. Because if we go, and I'm going to just look at a first level ability, okay? Not a 20th level ability, not a 30th level ability, a first level ability. If we go and we look at a first level ability out of Player's Handbook 1 from 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and we shoot over to the rogue. Now the rogue is a martial character, okay? They are, they don't use magic. They don't use anything like that, right? They are cunning and elusive adversaries, slipping into and out of the shadow, passing anywhere across the field of battle, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but you have sneak attack, okay? If you have combat advantage, okay, and you're using like a dagger or a crossbow or a sling or something like that, then you can apply your sneak attack damage. And it starts right off the rip at 2d6. And then also, if it's the start of the encounter, we have combat advantage against any creatures which have not gone yet. Combat advantage is +2 to attack. It's basically flanking. They just call it combat advantage. Instead of making them flat-footed, you get a bonus combat advantage. But in this case, if the rogue rolls well and wins an initiative, they basically have combat advantage against every creature that hasn't gone yet. So in other words, they have combat advantage against everyone. And then they have sneak attack, because anytime, once per round, when you have combat advantage. Now, I will say this eventually did get errated to not just being once per round, and they did change it, but you get sneak attack. But look at this level 1 daily power. Okay, so this is something that a rogue can do once a day. Okay, blinding barrage. A rapid barrage of projectiles leaves your enemies clearing the blood from your eyes. Now, this is a close blast 3. So 4th edition tried to make things very simple. So a close blast 3 is basically 3 squares by 3 squares, right? It's a tic-tac-toe grid. In D&D terms nowadays, we would call it a cone. But they didn't really have cones in 4th edition because cones are actually really hard to figure out and make. So anything that would be a cone is basically just a square that's adjacent to you. So you can basically imagine this as being a 3x3 square area that is adjacent to your character. And you have to be using a crossbow, a light thrown weapon like a dagger, or a sling. Now keep in mind, never mind that it's a fucking crossbow. Target every enemy in the blast. You make an attack roll using your dexterity. And if you hit, you do double weapon damage plus your dexterity modifier, and the target is blinded. And if you went first, you had combat advantage to this, so you had +2 damage, and you were doing sneak attacks. So the rogue, now, by the way, you're like, well, how does that work? My character has a dagger. Is it a magic dagger? No. You're like, so where are all these daggers coming from? I don't know. You're a rogue, man. You're whipping them out of here. Are you firing flashbang grenades strapped to your bolts? No. They're clearing the blood from your eyes, There's so many right? Dr. Metropolis, who cares? That's right. It's awesome. Like 4th edition, like when you watch somebody playing League of Legends or Dota or Diablo 3, do you ask yourself, you're like, how did that explain to me the physics of how that ability caused? She's got a single, she dual wields daggers. How is she throwing enough daggers to hit everyone in this blast? It just doesn't really make any sense. Blah, blah, blah. Who cares? So here's my point. You could be your cool teleporting psionic mystic, how can you blind that? I think this is very clear. You're cutting them up so much that the blood is getting into their eyes, and now they're blinded. So anyways, point is, this is on par. This is a level 1 power, by the way. This is on par with, cool sight. So a level 1 Eladrin sword mage, which is a thing in this 4th edition, can teleport across the battlefield. Oh, my ally got attacked. Boom, I discorporate. I pop up next to the enemy, teleporting across the battlefield. Before he can strike, I strike at him. I shield my ally with a glowing energy shield. I redirect the energy. That is literally what a level 1 Eladrin sword mage does. Okay, you're teleporting everywhere. It's level 1. Then as a move action, I teleport to the other side of the battlefield to set up a flank with this rogue, and then I attack. Okay, we're on the same par as the cool mystic guy from 5e. But what are your marshals doing in 5e? Are they doing AoE blinding, ranged weapon spray shots? Probably not. Yeah, exactly. So I love that all classes get to have cool powers and feel like badasses is literally my favorite thing about it. Well, Andrew, I think what you're counting, actually, Andrew, this is fundamentally my biggest problem with 5e. 4th edition is way the fuck over here. And the whole game is way the fuck over here. 1st edition AD&D is way the fuck over here. And everything is way the fuck over here. Mages, fighters, everybody. And I like that. I like when a game is like, this is what we do. This is the flavor that we've carved out. And this is what the whole game is about. We're not going to, some characters are really cool. Some characters suck. Some characters are really gonzo weird anime, flipping up swords, teleporting across the battlefield like we're fucking out of an X-Men movie, Nightcrawler. And other guys are like, well, I can hit with my axe. It's the tonal inconsistency and it's the play experience inconsistency that I don't like about 5e. 5e is playing it safe. It's, it's a half measure. And there's a great quote from Silence of the Lambs. I'm going to read it. It's said by Hannibal Lecter. Actually, no, it's actually from Red Dragon, which is the prequel movie. It came later, but it's a prequel. It's from Hannibal Lecter, who obviously is the cannibal guy who's incarcerated, and he writes a letter and he says, "We live in a primitive time, don't we, Will? Neither savage nor wise. Half measures are the curse of it. Any rational society would either kill me or put me to good use." And so it's this really interesting idea, because he's like, being in the middle is the worst part. Like, if we were a savage society, we would just kill me and we'd get over with it and we'd move on. Or if we were a wise society, we would use me and put me to some good use. But instead, we are neither. We're doing half measures. And we just stick me in a cell and we don't do anything with me. So anyways, that's all I'm trying. That's why it might seem like I'm on both sides of the fence, but it's just I like that they take a position. 5e deliberately is trying not to take a position, and that's probably why it is sold so well, and that's probably why it has done so well, is because it's whatever you want it to be, What book were the 3.x Scions in? The original 3.0 Scions was in the Psionics Handbook. The 3.5 Scions were in the expanded Psionics Handbook. Complete Psionics was the splat book that went along with that. Fourth edition needs to be played to be understood, as my book reading alone failed to convey the enjoyment potential. That is generally speaking true. As I've said, if you've ever played, and I really stand by this, if you've played TTRPGs for many years and you've played any sort of fighter, defensive tank or something, it is difficult for me to truly explain to you what it's like. I've always been into astronomy. I wanted to be an astronaut growing up, and I was told, you will never. There's nothing that could truly prepare you for a total solar eclipse. And just this past year, I finally got to see one. I missed the one in 2016 for some reason. I couldn't get off of work, so I couldn't drive far enough south to see it. And they were right. I was not ready for the experience, even though I knew math. I knew intellectually what was going on and everything like that. I was trying to process it. My brain was not ready for it. The first time that you play as like a 4th edition fighter and you are doing some of the things that you can do with your powers, and you will experience this feeling of like, oh, wow, that's what it means like to be a fighter. It's very difficult to actually, it's really difficult for me to explain, until you experience it. Now, that's fine. I'm not going to lie, 4th edition, like most versions of D&D, modern, we just talked about today about all these powers are mostly about fighting. Sometimes they're about making giving you advantage to a skill, but mostly they're about fighting. Case point was like, 4th edition's all about, 4th edition's all about combat. Well, here's the Great Leap ability, which is a rogue utility power at level 2. And you have to be trained in athletics, and you make a high jump or a long jump, and you determine the DC of the athletics check as though you had a running start. And the distance you jump can exceed your speed. So if you roll high enough, you can jump really far. Now, at low level, it is unlikely that your athletics check will exceed your speed. At high level, I can assure you that your athletics check will exceed your speed. And this makes, a high level rogue capable of just literally leaping across a battlefield, basically, like at epic level. But at the point you're an epic level character in 4th edition, you are, kind of literally, you might literally be a demigod. I mean, that might be your epic destiny, is to be a demigod. Right. If that's true, this does not allow for role playing. That is very true. But I'm just saying, hot take, 4E Knight is what PF2 fighter wants to be. I don't disagree with that. Although I don't like Knight Hardrick because it's from Essentials, and I fundamentally oppose Essentials at all things. D&D has been almost strictly about combat since 3rd edition, and I think that's mostly true. Prior to, 3rd edition, in my opinion, a lot of people say it's like the simulationist edition, but for the most part, I do think it is really when combat took, and there's a good reason for that. D&D 2nd edition came out in 1989, and when you think about the type of video games that people were playing in 1989, they were very different than the type of video games that people were playing through the mid 90s, late 90s, going into 3rd edition, coming out in 2000. By the time we got to the 2000, we had gone through, the Icewind Dale, the Baldur's Gate, the Diablo 2, and what people knew of what video games were, had become much more different. So, yeah. I was a 4E fighter when I played with Rules Lawyer Ronald. The gimmick of my fighter was that I was Valoros with a really bad fake mustache. I cobbled together double slice for the memes. Fair enough. In the 90s, this is just improv with character sheets role players were playing White Wolf games. Yeah, I mean, that is true. Right? The idea was like, oh, D&D is for kids. D&D is for just people who just want to roll dice and stuff. We're really cool. We're theater kids. We're going to go play White Wolf games. I mean, that's fairly true. Secrets of the Silver Blaze and Poison of Bulls of Radiance, totally different game. I mean, part of me, one of the things I want to do with this channel is actually go back and play some of those old classic SSI games and stuff like that, like Pools of Radiance and stuff like that. Where does Leisure Suit Larry, the RPG, come in if we're talking simple Monster Hearts? Anyways, so yeah, I mean, I like the ability for characters to do cool stuff, but then we should all be doing cool stuff, and we should all be doing, pretty fun, neat, cool stuff. I mean, I don't know. I just think I find it to be very cool. And it's very, very, very cool. There's some really, really cool powers in 4th edition. Some of them were sucked. You know, there's no doubt about it. But 3.x is nothing like my Mystic. Won't work at all for my core Book of Nine Swords Oriental Avenger Mystic game. Yeah, I mean, Book of Nine Swords is a great example. But Book of Nine Swords, as much as people like Book of Nine Swords, Book of Nine Swords was a preview of 4th edition, basically. Sick, Dr. Stevel. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Cataract surgery is no joke. I'm afraid to get LASIK, so I can only imagine what that would be like. Cal, I have a friend that loves Book of Nine Swords but hates 4E. Well, that's okay. I'm pretty sure Vin qualifies as that, Cal. Vin loves Book of Nine Swords. Like, he loves Book of Nine Swords from the Patreon, Vin, but he hates 4th edition. If you play those old SSI games, will you stream it or just do a VOD? Oh, Jason, we're streaming it. That's part of the reason we got onto Twitch is because I wanted to be able to kind of like do video games, you know? Thank you, GM Scott.
GM Scott tipped $25. More coin for the doggos.
I appreciate it. You did tip the other day, buddy. You didn't have to. I appreciate it. I owe you one at Origins, buddy. Thank you so much. The dogs appreciate it. Actually, yeah, I had to buy more food today. It was like $100 of dog food for dogs that are not mine. Well, you know, Cal, that I know that's what it was like. You could just do just chatting. I'm like, no. Please put the VODs from Twitch up on YouTube. I see. Yeah, it's tough. Okay, so the problem is, and I might, you know, obviously the only people I really care about are the patrons. But I don't want to no-nap my stream. You know, I don't want to no-nap my YouTube channel. People signed up for Knights of the Last Call because they were interested in TTRPGs, not because they're interested in me playing old video games. And if I put that up on my stream as a video, it's going to show up in every subscriber's feed. If I did it, I would make a side channel that would make me no money, and I would do it just for you, King Hodop. Or I would put on a playlist that is only available for the patrons, right? I would make no money off of it. It would be, you know, completely whatever side promoted. The problem with that is, just saying, the problem with that is if I stream to Twitch, then I have to record it locally. If I record it locally, then it takes up a huge amount of space on my hard drive. Then I have to upload it to YouTube. I have to wait for it to upload. It just becomes a very much more involved process. Part of the thing I really like about streaming is it's quick and it's easy. Additionally, as I've said before, we want to get some of the other knights involved. Now that is true. If we did have the side channel, we could dual stream from that. That is actually true. Well, Cal's correct. That's why other streamers have clip channels that other people manage, because it's a lot of work. Correct. Well, I don't have other people, so. But like I said, one of the things that we also want to do is we want to have Bob and Tim and Smith. I'm going to give them stream credentials, and they're going to be able to stream on the Knights of Last Call platform. Because, you know, they play other video games that I don't play, aka the ones that people like to watch, and people like Smith and Tim and Bob, and, you know, they might have fun hanging out with them and stuff like that. But I don't necessarily know that that's something that I want to enshrine or encapsulate. So I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of torn. I'm kind of torn about it. But all I do know is that I do not want to clog up KOLC YouTube channel with a bunch of streaming of video games, especially if that video game is not TTRPG related. Like, maybe if it's me and I'm playing Eye of the Beholder, which is a classic TTRPG, and we'll talk about TTRPGs. We'll talk about dungeon design. We'll talk about monsters. So there's a little bit of an overlap. But even then, I'm going to use a different thumbnail style. Like, it'll be blue or something like that with a retro RPG frame or something like that, because I want people to sort of understand that this is not. But at least it's a TTRPG game being played by me. But if, like, Tim is playing, I don't know what video games are popular or what Tim would play. If Tim is playing Fortnite or something, that is not something I ever want on KOLC's YouTube channel. If Tim streams Fortnite on the KOLC Twitch channel and just the Twitch channel, fine. You know, that's cool. That's fine. People can take it or leave it. But at the KOLC and the VOD and the sort of legacy of our channel, I don't want it to be clogged up by all that crap. So maybe we make a second channel, because again, the second channel won't make any money, to be very clear, because it won't be monetized. but I was not going to put it up there anyway. So I'm not losing anything. All I am doing, though, is a lot of extra work for literally no gain. So that's the only problem. It's extra work for no gain, other than making a very small handful of people happy. But you know what? Those small handful of people are mostly, it seems, are my patrons. And if my patrons want me to do it, then I'll do it because I like my patrons. Well, the thing about combat focus in 4th edition is, obviously there's a lot of rules in 5th edition for combat. There's a lot of rules about advantage and disadvantage and different, resistances to different energy types and attacks. And you've got bonus actions to get this bonus to this attack and all this other stuff. We just saw all those disciplines. But none of those abilities or feats, I have great weapon focus, whatever it's called, great weapon mastery. I have sentry feat or whatever. None of those feats, none of those class features, none of those abilities, none of those spells, none of those disciplines or talents keep you or prevent you and your friends from having a session where maybe you don't ever get into combat, where you mostly maybe you just spend the entire session talking in character. You make a handful of skill checks. You do some investigation, right? And you have a whole 3 or 4 hour session of just that. I'm legitimately wondering why people think that is not possible in 4th edition D&D. It's literally the same thing. Now, does 4th edition D&D have a lot of combat rules? Yes. Does 3rd edition D&D have a lot of combat rules? Yes. Does 5th edition D&D have a lot of combat rules? Yes. Are most of the class features and spells and feats and stuff like that in 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition tied to combat? Yes. But just like anything else, you can just not use them and focus on other things and other elements of the game that you find interesting. And obviously you're very happy having those elements in the game and not having mechanical support for them, because they don't have mechanical support in 3rd edition and they don't have mechanical support in 5th edition. So why is that a problem? Right. It's impossible because 4E is an MMO. Source, I made it up. Right. So people go, 4E is an MMO. And I go, whoa, what does that mean? Now, I actually kind of agree with Dr. Metropolis. I actually think it's easier to do it in 4th edition because you have martial practices and rituals, and 4th edition doesn't get so caught up about how you do something. It's just it's an effects-based game. And not only that, 4th edition is the only version of D&D that supports skill challenges, which is, ostensibly a non-combat way to mechanically evolve with the game. So it's a way to mechanize social. It's a way to mechanize exploration. It's a way to mechanize intrigue. It's a way to mechanize stealth or heist. It's a way to mechanize crafting. It's a way to mechanize puzzle solving. It's a way to and that's fine. You might not want to do that, but at least the game has rules for it. But yes, you can also role play without role playing. But again, what did I miss the version of D&D that has a gigantic section about role playing? Tim says I love 4E, probably my favorite edition, second only to that one session of AD&D. Now ask Tim why Tim's favorite session was that one session of AD&D. Tim, you're so predictable, my friend. I was literally just picking a video game that I knew the name of. I don't know anything. I don't know that any of my friends play Fortnite. Twitch does have VOD, but it's very limited. Apparently it only keeps it up for like 2 weeks or something like that. Yes. So if you missed it, Tim said, I rolled up a level 1 character. I qualified to be an elf assassin, and I got to sneak up on and successfully assassinate a CR3 ogre. And John's paying for it. Tim, why is that your favorite? Oh, Tim, why is that your favorite session of 4E? No, John, that was his favorite session of AD&D first edition, because he rolled an assassin and he was level 1 and he snuck up on an ogre. And I'm like, oh, Tim, this is gonna be tough. And he's like, okay. And he rolls. It's just a percentage check. It compares your level to the creature's level. And he's like, he's like, so what happens? I'm like, it dies. And he's like, that's it? And I go, that's it. He goes, oh, that's so fucking awesome. He just died. To me, the biggest reason 4E sounds like an MMO is that the combat powers resetting on encounter feels very mechanically gamist rather than in-world simulationist. Spinster, I can respect that actually a lot. However, you know, I don't understand, at least for me personally, you know, like invoke awe lasts for 10 minutes. You know, why? What's 10 minutes? You know what I mean? Like this lasts until the end of your next turn. You can only do this thing once a day. Then once you've used it, it only resets after a short rest. Like it's all just gamist language. You know, I think the problem is focusing on the gamist mechanic, which makes the game interesting, while associating it diegetically with the fiction. And I think that that's just not the way it's going to be. You know, I agree. There's a wording issue here. I certainly understand that. Now, I find 4th edition very easy to read and learn because it's written in a very clear way. It's laid out in a very uniform way. It's, the flavor text is in a separate bar of color. And you've got all your keyword tags at the top. You know exactly what the reach is. You know what, if this is a trigger, what is the requirement? What is the target? What do you roll to attack? What happens when you hit? Is there any benefits? Obviously it's an MMO because MMOs have powers. RPGs have feats and abilities, and those are very different. And I always point out that a lot of people call 3rd edition the king of the simulationist RPG. In 3rd edition, the barbarian could rage once a day, and eventually could rage twice a day, and eventually could rage 3 times a day. Why can the barbarian only rage once a day or twice a day? Like what's keeping him from raging? You're like, well, he got tired, but he only has the energy to get it up twice a day. Why? Like what is going on there? Doesn't really make any sense. But yeah, saying once per 10 minutes instead of once per encounter means something entirely different. I tend to agree. So right. Why do you forget your spells? Because it's a game. Yes. And I do think a lot of people discount its gamist elements. I actually completely agree with you. They very much discount its gamist elements. Just use Earth Dawn, so everything's diegetic, right? But even then, people still have a problem with that as well. John is trolling. He says that's sick. Everything I ever wanted out of a D&D assassin after seeing a 3rd edition assassin study a target for 45,423 rounds, and then they still get a fort save. You're like, well, he's higher level than you, so he's never going to fail this fort save. Right. PF2 also resets combat powers on a short rest. It's called focus points and refocus. Or D&D has a short rest and it's an hour. What's so magical about an hour? You know what I mean? Like it's all gamist, but again, people pick on the things that they want to pick on, and that's fine. It's totally fine. And ultimately, I don't begrudge people who think that 4E is not for them. I'm just saying that it's a bit it's a bit silly because it really is the same. I'm not really defending 4th edition. I'm just saying it's the same thing as anything else. Absolutely, Jonka. Daily powers are spell slots, at wills or cantrips, and encounter powers are focus spells. And then people say, yeah, but that's for wizards. Like, what about fighters? And then I go, okay, what about this fighter ability that they can only use once a day? And they're like, well, that's different. I've literally seen people do this. And I'll use the exact same thing. I'll say dailies, spell slots, at wills are cantrips, encounter powers are focus spells. And they go, yeah, but what about a fighter? And I go, what about your fighter has this? He can only use that thing once a day. What about battlefield medicine? What about battlefield medicine in PF2? And then people go, well, no, it's not the same. It's different. Yeah. Right. It's more obviously a game. I mean, shocking, I know, that something called a role-playing game would, present itself like a game. Dr. Metropolis, thank you so much.
DR Metropolis tipped $3. I think the key point is that turn consistency matters. Don't mix the sword mage with the magic user.
Well, why would you not mix the sword mage with a magic user? The sword mage is from the arcane, the arcane power source. So that's actually pretty sweet. So I don't know. I would like that. In fact, actually, one of my favorite things that I've always wanted to do. Oh, I say magic user as in AD&D. Okay, thank you. Okay, yes. Okay, correct. Sword mage should not be with the first edition and magic user. It should be with the 4th edition wizard, right? One of my things that I've always wanted to do was to have a party that was all one power source. So, for example, in 4th edition D&D, and there's 4 roles, right? There's defender, your soldier, your tank. There's striker, your damage, your DPS. Your controller, your sort of AoE debuffer type. And then you have the leader, who's your healer, buffer type. Well, every power source, with some exceptions, has all of these roles covered. So, for example, you could have a party, and you're like, you're all from Strixhaven, right? Or you're all from Hogwarts or whatever. You're all from magic school, but like instead of a fighter or paladin, you have a sword mage, and your sword mage is the defender, but his power source is arcane. He does spells. He does spell attacks. They're called spells. They're not called exploits. They're not called powers. They're not called invocations. They're called spells. The sword mage uses int. He's a wizard. He's just a sword mage. And then your striker could be like a warlock or a sorcerer. And then a wizard is your controller. And then something like a bard is actually an arcane leader. So the bard is the arcane healer, is the arcane buffer. So you could have a party and actually have 5 different classes. You could have sword mage, sorcerer, warlock, wizard, and bard. And not only are they all doing different things, they're all filling different roles in the party. But yet they're all arcane. They're all wizards, in a certain sense. They're all mages, right? They're all using spells and spell energy and arcane. And I think that's so fucking cool. I think that is so cool. Like, our party in 4th edition was admittedly very martial. Tim was a rogue, a martial, martial damage, martial striker. Matt was originally a ranger, a martial striker. Well, Matt became a ranger, a martial striker. Their fighter, they had a fight dwarf fighter, a martial tank, a martial defender, and then they had a warlord, a martial controller. The only thing they didn't have was a martial controller because a martial controller never existed. Well, no, but the original core books had martial, divine, and arcane classes. Like, someone could have been a paladin, right? Somebody could have been, things like that. So, there were options, Tim. There were options. And then they had one wizard. They only had one other class because that was not martial. Yeah, you guys completely skipped divine. You didn't have any divine classes in your group at all, which is fine because the game worked just fine. You could be a warlord and still be a fantastic healer. Karam, I have my thoughts about this. I've talked about this before, but I actually think the ranger should have been the martial controller. What's up, John? Real talk, though, Battlefield Medicine is a terribly designed feat because it completely steps on the toes of an entire archetype and playstyle. It displaces any class built around healing. But what I will say, John, to that is that what Pathfinder 2 was trying to do was to not require anyone to be the healer. That's what they were trying to do. And with the presence and availability of, and the problem with that is you can totally get away without having a healer in Pathfinder 2 because treat wounds outside of combat is so effective at, healing people up to full. The only thing that's missing is how do you do emergency healing during combat? And that's where Battlefield Medicine comes in. And the reason they did that is because they don't want you to otherwise you have to have somebody who has access to heal. You have to have a caster. I mean, I guess you could get away with soothe, but realistically, you're gonna have to have that access to heal. And they wanted to avoid that as much as possible. And their fix was battlefield medicine. But you couldn't make battlefield medicine unlimited because then that would shit all over the cleric. So what do? You have to make it once per person per day, but you can heal other people, and other people could heal that person again, but you can't heal that person again today. It's completely gamist, utterly gamist, but nobody has a problem with that. But if you call something a power, people lose their fucking minds. Whatever. I don't care. I don't know. Yeah, Marshall should have been Ranger Marshall Control. And if I cared more about 4th edition, we would maybe eventually, sort of rebuild it, because that'd be sweet. The entire reason I stopped playing PF2 is because it was too much like 4E. It's all smoke and mirrors to try and not appear as the hyper gamist system that it actually is. Well, I don't think 4E was trying to not appear to be hyper gamist. 4E was like, hey, this is a balanced game, and we care about the DCs, and we want to make sure that your character has the appropriate bonuses, and that the game is going to be fair and challenging throughout the whole thing. You're saying PF2 was, not 4E. Yes, I see. Yeah, 4E was very unapologetic, and people were very affronted by that. They were like, I want my game to be completely, whatever. And then they got 5th edition. And what do people bitch about in 5th edition? They're like, none of these powers make sense. I hate the naturalistic languages. It's very unclear what things do. God, the balance is so terrible. My party can just wipe out anything because it's so crazy. Or, my characters you're very dangerous at level 1. If you get crit, you're just dead. And like the things that 4th edition deliberately existed to fix, right? They got rid of, and then 5th edition came in, and then it shit all over. And then those are the things that people bitch about. 4th edition, you were making choices constantly, right? I mean, constantly you were making choices in 4th edition. I mean, granted, PF2 fucking turned this to 11. I'm not going to lie. PF2, you're making a trillion decisions. But I mean, in Pathfinder, in 4th edition D&D, come on, where the fuck are you? Apparently it's after all of the rules. Here we go. In 4th edition D&D, okay, you got feats, right? You start with 1 feat. You get up to 18 feats, okay? You're gaining powers, daily attack powers, encounter powers, utility powers. You're gaining Paragon Path, Paragon features. You're getting bonuses to your ability score, +1 to 2, +1 to 2, +1 to all of your ability scores, +1 to 2, +1 to 2, +1 to all your ability scores. So you're just getting all sorts of stuff. So 4th edition gave people tons of choices, tons of abilities to make choices. And people were like, no, it's too many choices. We want just, old school game where you pick Barbarian, that's it, you're locked in. And then 5th edition did that. And people were like, oh, this game's so boring. You don't get to make any choices. Yeah, no shit. John, additionally, from a lore standpoint, it's so easy to become trained in medicine, and medicine is so capable. Why the hell would anyone devote their study and piety to healing magic? That's true. I mean, anyone can pick it up, and it's super, super clear. But again, John, the whole idea of divine magic is crazy. I mean, if anybody can just wiggle their fingers and heal people at will, I mean, what are we even doing here? I mean, we can't even do that with modern medicine. So, if a gunshot wound is equivalently damage, right, and maybe someone is really hurt and presumably dying, then a single cure spell in modern day parlance would just immediately heal any gunshot wound. So from that standpoint, you might be like, why isn't everybody a cleric? I want my game to be a game. I can make up the rest of the not game parts. And it's funny that Karama says that because, Karama, I love you, but you're a gamist fuck. But, that's exactly the reasoning that Dimension 20 GM, what's his name? Brennan Lee Mulligan gave. He said, we don't care about the other rules for D&D because all we want rules for is for the stuff that I can't make up, and that's the combat and the fighting parts. And I don't really need the rest of the game system because I'm going to make it up. And somehow that's fine for that, but people, 4th edition, again, they just lose their mind. I don't understand it, And Tim says, yeah, I can FBT in any system, so I want my TTRPG to have some game to it. Because people like me would combust if they ever set foot in a temple. Well, fair enough. So there you go. Everyone has an option, Yeah, I mean, how simulationist games rationalize healing HP is definitely a bunch of mental hurdle hoops that people are jumping through over and over and over again because, yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. Well, especially when you really think about like, okay, so if these are wounds and they're wounds, but they're luck, then what the fuck is, and you could even say maybe cure, maybe heal, it's a divine spell. Maybe it's re-giving you your will, your fortune, your fate, you know, a touch of the divine to restore that the bit of luck of chance that you have. Then explain treat wounds, you know, explain any of those other things. It doesn't make any sense. That's fairly true. I mean, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I think, you know, is, I mean, we talked about that. I think there was an RFC stream, or maybe it was my stream, and Steven Glicker was on my show, but we were talking about it, and I was just like, yeah, Steve, I said, PF2 is not the sequel to PF1. PF2 is the sequel to 4th Edition. And he was like, holy shit, you're right. And I was like, yeah, I know. And what they did is they obstructed and they confused the language. They added games rules text in the middle of flavor, and now people get to wonder if this means something or if it's just flavor. And people apparently like that. They apparently like being confused and not sure how things work. You know, it's a big. People are very big fans of it. The one thing I've learned over the last 20 years, 15 years since 4th Edition came out is people like being like ambiguity and not being clear what the rules do.
Calderiarch tipped $3. 4E came out right when video games were getting dumbed down and people were pissed to seeing it spread to their tabletop.
That's a good point. Actually, I'm looking for your chat. There it is. That's a good point, Cal. You know, I wasn't really playing much video games at that point either, so I can't really say to that. I mean, look, 4th Edition definitely makes things easier by making the game fair. So whether that's a dumbing down or not, I'm not really sure, you know? Three.x was followed by 4E, and PF was just 3x, so PF2 being 4E makes some sense. Yeah, supposedly. Yes. Yeah, I mean, again, this is why I like healing surges. You know, I think healing surges make a lot of sense to me because it's like, you know, whether it's you digging deep or it's a heroic, element of sort of being, inspired to keep pushing on. I mean, case in point, the Warlord's healing power in 4th Edition is called Inspiring Word. You call out to a wounded ally and offer inspiring words of courage and determination that helps the ally heal. You know, I mean, it's, you know, it's very clearly suggesting that, you know, the hit point mechanic is more about a will to fight. You know, I mean, there's probably a certain amount of like, yes, you are wounded, but the healing doesn't represent the wound closing. It represents you sort of ignoring the wound, right? That your courage and determination, it's not like the wound magically healed. You're still wounded. You're just keep going. I don't know if it's from this book. I don't know what book it's from. I think there's a PF2 or a 4E D&D. Called Rub Some Dirt in It. What's it from? Maybe it's from the original book. No, it must be from like Player's Handbook 2 or something like that. But there's one called Rub Some Dirt in It. But, you know, like you can see here, shake it off. You convince yourself or an ally to shake off a debilitating effect. So they get to make a saving throw, and they get a bonus to the saving throw with a bonus equal to your charisma modifier, right? Because sure, you're poisoned. Well, this isn't like, yes, in game mechanic terms, and this is where I think people lose it. Let's say that Tim was poisoned. So you're saying, oh, so the warlord cures him or heals him of the poison? Mechanically in the game, yes. But really what's happening is it's more of just like in the fiction, right? The warlord is, basically telling him to, ignore that shit. Focus on what you have to do. Get your head in the game. And while mechanically the poison is healed, in the fiction, we just kind of assume that that character is still probably poisoned. They're just fighting through the pain. They're fighting through the debilitation, right? They're fighting through and they're stronger because of it. So that's where that's where the element is. In fact, one of my favorite things ever, of course, Lord of the Rings had come out. There was a king with the characters were higher level. They were higher level, and there was a king who was like being, was under the magical control of an evil mage. And it was very like Sauron controlling King Theoden. And Smith was like, can I use diplomacy to try to like break the spell? And, he was very much like, like Gandalf, like King Hawkenwald, listen to my words, and I was like, oh, fuck yeah, totally, And so mechanically in the game, Smith used diplomacy skill to essentially do a dispel magic. Like that's what happened in the mechanics of the game. In the mechanics of the game, Smith used diplomacy to dispel a magical effect. But in the fiction of the game, it was this warlord, this scion of an ancient line, this sort of Aragorn character, right? Who is so charismatic and so, charming and so powerful in his leadership that he can, literally shake you free from, maybe the very bonds of death itself, or in this case of being magically compelled, being like reaching out to you. I know you're in there. Listen to me. You're stronger than this, and I think that's awesome. That to me is that's very compelling play, and Elio wants the mechanics to exactly duplicate what is happening in the fiction. That's fine. And that's why we have simulationist mechanics. But I think it's more, cool and stuff like that, when it's not that. Now, and one of the interesting things though about simulationism is that simulationism tends to ignore a lot of things that actually do happen in the real world. They just, like Tim's saying, like in a war movie, when someone's dazed from an explosion and the commander runs by and yells in their face and they literally come to their senses. The simulationist gamer would say, that's totally unrealistic. You need a remove affliction spell in order to remove the dazed or stunned condition. And they're like, I find it completely, completely breaking, immersion breaking when, a martial character is able to remove a condition from somebody. And it's like, I don't know. That sounds, pretty normal. And also at the end of the day, it's still a game, because as simulationist as your game is, it's still going to be loaded with gamist elements. And you're doing extra. If you want to work that hard to suspend your disbelief, then go for it. Whatever makes you enjoy the game. I personally enjoy having a good game and then, making the fiction make sense to us. And everybody what I played with had a really good time with it. Everyone is playing simulationist gamist games, but are trying to get narrative as outcome. It's peak comedy for me. And it is kind of La Femelle. You are right. And it is very, very funny. And I also too, Dr. Martin, this is why I created GSNE, is because I prefer emulation to simulation for sure. Dr. Fabula Ultima owns my heart. It's totally fair. What is FBT? FBT is a term that we use that here on Night's Last Call that is called fluffy bullshit time. And what fluffy bullshit time is is it's basically any time that you're describing things in the game and that description doesn't really matter. It doesn't really affect the game. It doesn't really affect the outcome of the game. Now, that doesn't mean that fluffy bullshit isn't fun. It can be a lot of fun. But mechanically, when you're playing a game of D&D, the outcome of you swinging a sword is not affected by whether or not you describe the sword strike. In other words, if we're playing D&D and I go, oh, fuck this, I hit him with my sword. I roll D20, I add my strength bonus, and then we see if I hit him if I roll my armor class high enough. But if I were to say, I swing to the left to parry around his shield side, and I stab my rapier upwards through his plate armor, I'm adding a little bit of, fluffy bullshit. I'm making a little bit more spice. But it doesn't affect the game, right? The game doesn't care that I just described that. Now, you might say, well, my GM would give me advantage if I described it like that. Well, then that's no longer fluffy bullshit time. But to be clear, the mechanics of D&D, by their default nature, do not care how you describe things or what you're describing them to do. Now, what is GSNE? GSNE is a sort of my take on the original breakdown of the tenets of gamist, simulationist, and narrativist. And then I add emulationist, which is sort of the breakdown of how. Now, the original thing from the Forge from the 90s was a little bit different. The way I look at it is all mechanics in a game serve one of these four masters. A mechanic is either designed to increase gamism, simulationism, narrativism, or emulationism. It's just a game. It's 1 a.m. I'll probably be going to bed soon here. It really is just a game. Like, you can take it very seriously. Some people dedicate their entire lives to the game of baseball. Like, they'll sacrifice their wives, their children. You know, they devote their entire life to the game of baseball. But that doesn't change the fact that baseball is just a game. It is just a game. Well, that's why I use the term. I think that there are gamist mechanics, and I think there are narrative mechanics. To be clear, I don't think all mechanics are gamist. Otherwise, it's a meaningless term. Gamist mechanics exist to make the process of playing the game better. Simulationist mechanics exist. They don't care if the game experience is better. They are wanting to make the simulation of this fictional reality better. And then narrative mechanics are designed to create better story outcomes, which may not necessarily be something that is simulationist, and it may not be something that is gamist. Like, a gamist mechanic is like, look, we want this to be a fair and balanced fight. We don't really care that, like, the PCs, are trying to overcome, and this is the six-finger man that killed his, father, and so I really, really care, All right, you know what? You're right, Beowulf. I take it back. It is a game to you. It is a game to me, maybe. But if to Critical Role, it could be more than a game, because to Critical Role, it's a job and an investment opportunity. But to all the rest of us, it's a game. Take care, Voinupla. Peace. Well, to be clear, we have to separate the difference between the experience of the session versus the game experience of the game itself. Magic the Gathering deals with this, quite frequently and quite often, where you have to understand that those aren't necessarily the two same things. It's like when people say, when we talk about fun versus interesting, and people go, well, interesting things are fun for me. And it's like, well, no, right? That we're not talking about fun or interest. We're talking about enjoyment and why do you enjoy something? And some people enjoy things for the emotional effect, and some people enjoy things for the mental effect. But saying that things that are interesting or fun to you isn't really quite the same thing. Again, it's mostly pedantic, kind of, pointless discussions, but but yes, Love Flamel is correct. Gamist is more about balance, challenge, creating a sort of, gamist elements that are going to create an experience that itself is would be fun even if you weren't playing a role-playing game, right? If it was just those mechanics and nothing else, right? So. Yes, gamist mechanics serve the game. Simulationist mechanics serve the game, but that doesn't make simulationist mechanics gamist. But to be clear, there's the game, right? There's the game, 7th C, and then there's the experience of playing the game of 7th C. And those are different things, right? So that's what, that's where I think there's sort of a, maybe that's a way of describing it, right? This is a game, but when you use this game to create an experience, that experience is not necessarily 7th C the game, if that makes any sense. No, also, yeah, there's nothing wrong. I mean, everyone should totally play their own games there, so. Now, you'll agree with that? All right. We'll agree. We'll meet in the middle there, because, I've seen people say system doesn't matter. Okay. I don't necessarily think I agree with that. I do think system matters. In fact, I want system to matter. That's why I picked the system. But, the fact of the matter is that there is a larger experience that occurs in play. I mean, it's the same way that, like, let me put it this way. When we used to go over, this is kind of my way of thinking about it. We used to go over to Smith's house, okay? And we would play on his N64, we would play like Gauntlet Legends or whatever in the 4-player mode in his basement growing up. So Gauntlet Legends was the game that went into the cartridge. Or the cartridge that went into the N64. And Gauntlet Legends was, the characters running around killing the monsters. But when I said, hey, we're going to go play Gauntlet Legends, that also included things like the pizza, right? That got ordered. It also included things like, shit talking each other. It also included, someone being like, oh my God, I can't believe you're fucking going to die again. Right? Like, oh, it's who's getting the 5-way shot buff. Right? Like, those things aren't in the cartridge. So the game of Gauntlet Legend is the cartridge, but the experience of Gauntlet Legend, when I say I'm going to go play Gauntlet Legends, those other elements include into that area. And yes, the Jester, better up. Game as experience versus game as a formal interactive system. Correct. And so, it's the same thing with TTRPGs. And TTRPGs are a game, and they do exist in that space, and they should be viewed as that space. But how you use that game to create an experience for yourself, that's going to vary wildly from table to table. And what you use that system for is going to, vary wildly from table. You can't hijack someone else's term, especially if nobody else is going to call it that. But anyways, take care, Dr. Steve. I'm heading out myself. We're actually going to be streaming tomorrow night, so Thursday night. So here, you want to hear this? What we're doing tomorrow night? We're going to finish my Pathfinder 2 character because I got to play on Friday. So you guys can help me build a Pathfinder 2 character. I mean, my character's basically built, but I need to actually pick my Eldamon and stuff like that. Oh, right. We also want to review the Dead Elves Wives. Yes. Thank you. I would have forgotten about that. Hopefully I won't remember. Hopefully I will not forget. But yes, we were going to go over that as well. I do not need a name. My name is Flux. So, but again, I also spent the weekend talking with Mark a little bit about it. So there might be some brewing. Smith's pretty generous in terms of this. I mean, we're already such a clusterfuck of characters. I don't think he's going to complain too much. But I came up with a really cool idea, and I was like, Mark, you may have to like make me a custom heritage because for my ancestry because that. What is my PF2 character? My PF2 character is a slime Eldamon trainer. That is, my ancestry is slime, and my class is Eldamon trainer. For those of you who don't know, our party is, we have an android soldier. We have a Borai Kasatha mechanic. We have an intelligent animated weapon magus. We have a slime ooze Eldamon trainer. And then we have a living dungeon museum Eldamon trainer. That, as I recall, is our party. So that's what I think we have. Yes, an android soldier, a Borai Kasatha mechanic, an intelligent animated weapon magus, a slime ooze Eldamon trainer, and a living dungeon museum Eldamon trainer. No, I do not have any character art for that yet. Flux Kapak actor? No, just Flux, because he's a slime guy. I'm in your inventory. Good to know, obvious. I don't actually know what happened in the first session. You guys said it was epic and awesome. I don't know if you were being ironic or serious, but I actually don't know anything that happened in the session. How much to tip to get Torchbearer every day of the week? Well, Spinster, a lot. But, Spinster, if you do enjoy the Torchbearer, realize that we have 2 Torchbearer campaigns. We have the Sunday crew and the Saturday crew. And the Saturday crew has 4 or 5 episodes available as well, but they're only available to our patrons. So if you do want more Torchbearer, you could always sign up for the Patreon, and that'll get you access to those episodes as those come out. So potentially there's, oh, you are a patron. Okay, well then, what's your? I don't recognize Spinster. All right, well in that case, Spinster, I'm sorry, I can't help you. We're trying. Yeah, he already customized it. Oh, good. So TTRPG at the table is an activity that includes playing the game. Yes, that's how I would describe it, Lollipop. That is actually correct. Leflamel, thank you for heading out. Most of these are made up words. I mean, to be fair, all words are made up. The most Battle Zoo PF2 party of all time just dropped. I actually posted. Oh right, there may have been a gas leak as well. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Spinster. That's awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's very interesting. It's a different system. It's definitely unique, I will say this is pretty funny. I said to Bob, I was like, yeah, I was talking with Mark about my character, and I have some Mark Seifter when I was working at PAX West, and I have some ideas for my character, and what I want to do with, and I put him/her/it, because like I'm a slime. I don't really have a gender. And then I said, this is the most PF2 conversation that ever happened. And Bob went, I don't know if anybody in our party has a gender. And I went, oh yeah, George is an android. You're dead and an alien that may not have a gender. Like their race may not have a gender. Tim technically is a male character, but he's actually, like, biologically, he is not, because he's an animated weapon. I mean, the mind that's inside of it is male, but he's not actually male. And then I said, and then Kaz is a dungeon. So our entire party may not actually have any genders whatsoever. So it's gonna be nice. We just need Derek Factory to pump out more content. Well, we're trying to get my life somewhat organized, somewhat together. Actually, today is a special day because normally I would have gotten a pay day today. My company always paid us on the 15th and on the last day of the month. So this is the first day that I have not received. This is the first time I have not received a paycheck. So, normally I would be getting my paycheck for my job, and this time I did not get my paycheck for my job. So, I'm definitely like, oh, how much did I make today? Oh, not as much as I normally made. So it's a little tough. How does that feel? Well, not great. But I've also, enjoyed, yeah, Tim. Tim knows what's up. Actually, Tim, all we need is like one more person to like lose their job or not have a job, and we could just totally have a group. We could like be old school because, George quit and I don't have a job. You don't have a job. Larry doesn't have a job. Like we could get a whole no job crew campaign going on here. Anyways, yeah, right. Middle of the day, 2 p.m. Wednesday, like the old days.
I am strong.
Oh, Knights of Last Career. That is savage. Oh, you're there too. All right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are there. Yeah. It's just, it's brutal. It's brutal. But yeah, anyways, tough stuff. What happens if I do this? I'm just curious here. Does that do anything? Oh, cool. Okay. You're part of the unemployed club too. Oh man. What do we have to do to get Tim in NR? I don't know. You have to talk to Tim. I want Tim to play video games on Night's Last Call and hang out with everybody, but we got to get it. We got to get it set up. It's tough times for a lot of people. I know Sean didn't have a job. Sean just got a new job, but he was unemployed for a while. I think he was talking about. Well, that's good. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I did Uber the last time I was not working. I did Uber for like 3 months. That was tough. I wish they had done that sort of thing. With all this time together, we should do something. If only we had a shared hobby. I'm trying. I gotta stream. I gotta bring us all together. People are playing NR. They're playing games. Like I said, we got Forge threatened to cancel our account because we were playing too many games. Anyways, all right, folks. I'm gonna dip out. I'm gonna be back tomorrow or later today, I guess. Tomorrow evening, we're gonna be probably just messing around with Eldamon and stuff like that. So. What is the lowest Patreon for later? Well, we have a limited number of $3 slots, but I think they're currently all filled. So our lowest is typically $5. We do have a Squire level that was originally created just as like an intro level, so that's why it was limited. And we've had some people who have been like Squires for a very, very long time, which is totally awesome. They're fine to do it, but I think it's capped out. So. But $5 is our knight level. In fact, you come in at a knight because once you join the knight, you're a knight. That's why the $3 level is squire because you're like you're supposed to be aspirational, to become a squire. But the truth of the matter is, if somebody gives me $3, you are in the like top 2% of people who watch or engage with this channel who have ever given me money. I mean, the vast majority, and I respect that. I watch a lot of YouTube channels, and I don't tip them or I don't send them money. I mean, I've been patrons here and there for different people and stuff like that. Like I'm Matt Colville's patron, because I think the content he puts out is really cool. I'm a patron of this girl called Physics Girl, and I've been her patron for a long time. She's had long COVID for like 3 years and hasn't made a video, but I'm still her patron. Limited Resources is another one I'm a patron of. Anyways, so yeah, I anybody who decides to support this channel financially, it's a huge step. So, all right, folks, I'm gonna dip out. I'm out. I'll be back tomorrow, and we'll talk Eldamon, we'll talk Pathfinder 2, and we'll talk Dead Alewives Watchtower. What is the Dead Alewives? I think it was like a comedy group, Beowulf, but they did these skits in the early 2000s about D&D that are just, classics. So, all right, everybody, I'll see you tomorrow on Knights of Last Call. Good night.